Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Josh.
and this is the Bad at Magic podcast, a podcast about games, life, and other things. And welcome to episode 9,
Woo!
an episode in which, for the first time ever on this podcast, we're going to discuss Star Wars.
For the first time ever. And we promise we're not going to spoil anything. All right, so this is something that we keep talking about, is Star Wars. And it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up. But now it's been pushed to the forefront of the zeitgeist.
Let's take it head on.
Yes, we're going to plow right into it, and we're going to trudge through both the wonderful parts and the terrible parts. And so, for those who are not aware, and I don't see how you could not be aware at this point, but Disney is finally getting in on their streaming game. They released their own new streaming service called Disney Plus, which, if you have children under the age of, I'm going to say, 15, then you've already purchased it. You already own Disney Plus.
Disney's been working our entire lives to convince us that we're never too old to be children that love Disney.
Well, did you buy Disney Plus when it came out?
I'll say I didn't adopt the first week. I held out for a whole week.
I want to say the same. Like, I think Nicole and I held out for a solid 7 hours before we bought it.
What really put me over the top is my mobile device provider sent me a text that was like, hey, we'll pick up the first year for free if you sign up through us. I was like, great.
That's funny because that's what got us looking into it. Because my wife's coworker of my wife's said that they were getting it for free through their mobile provider. And so we looked it up, and I'm like, oh, actually, that's only valid if you have unlimited data. And we don't have unlimited data.
Ah.
Yeah. So then I had to do the cost-benefit analysis. Okay.
Is it worth it to upgrade or just pay for Disney Plus?
It turned out to be, if we want unlimited data, we'll pay $30 more a month. Or I can get Disney Plus for a year for $70.
Yeah.
So that was hard math for the accountant over here.
So if you're going to launch your own streaming service, the fact that they own much of the content I want is pretty good, but they were also looking for that killer app. What's going to make people want to actually pay to subscribe to a third or fourth streaming service?
Right, and this is a standard thing that happens when new devices, new technology, when anything is launched. Like if you look at any gaming console that comes out, the biggest question on everybody's mind is what are the launch titles? What games come with it?
Let's play this game then. What was it for Xbox?
Halo.
Of course.
Duh. Of course.
How about PlayStation 2?
Oh man, I didn't have a PlayStation 2, but it was probably a Final Fantasy game.
How about GameCube?
Oh, GameCube was Metroid Prime.
See, I feel like it was Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Was that a launch title though?
Metroid Prime wasn't. I think the launch title was like Luigi's Mansion or something lame.
GameCube launch titles. Oh, dear listeners, hang on to your seats because we are going deep into internet culture here. Oh, this is a very long list of things. Nope, I'm not going to read this. We'll figure it out some other time.
So for Disney Plus, the killer app is some unique, never before seen, can't see it anywhere else, Star Wars IP.
And that is, of course, The Mandalorian.
Come and get it hot and fresh.
All right, Ben. So my question to you is twofold. First, have you been watching The Mandalorian?
Yes, I have, and I will reserve my opinion. I want you to kind of lead up to it like you planned. I like your plan here.
Oh, fair enough. Well, my second follow-up question before we even get into that is, did you know what a Mandalorian was before you started watching the show?
Yes. Do you want to know my reason why?
I do want to know your reason why.
Okay, I played Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Nice. Solid. So you have a solid understanding of Star Wars lore.
Yes.
Okay. All right, and so let's do the lead-in. So the biggest question here is that this is, like you said, the latest and greatest of all of the Disney version of the Star Wars IP. And so we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the road that led us here.
Go for it.
Okay. So back in 2015, we got the new Star Wars movie, long anticipated, long awaited. Everyone's super excited about it. The Force Awakens. I can tell you right now, I was trepidatious because I'm always worried about reboots. I'm always worried about new studios taking over. And I was particularly worried that Disney wasn't going to handle the IP correctly. I was worried that they were going to turn it into just some kind of cash grab. They were going to just start churning things out of the sausage maker. And when The Force Awakens came out and I saw it in the theaters, I was very, very happily disabused of those assumptions.
That's good.
Yeah, what did you think of The Force Awakens?
Well, okay, so I think people's experience in cinema largely tends to be a factor of discrepancy in relation to your expectations. Like, if you go in and you're expecting something really great and it just is good, then you're really disappointed. If you go in and your expectations aren't high, or as you called it, you're trepidatious, then it's pretty easy to exceed your expectations. I would say not quite as cynically as you described it, but I also was a bit trepidatious about Star Wars The Force Awakens and was pleasantly surprised. Wasn't that one directed by J.J. Abrams?
Oh, man, I hope not.
I think it was.
J.J. Abrams destroyed Star Trek for me, so I hope it wasn't.
Let's see. Yeah, J.J. Abrams.
Wow. Well, how did he do so well with The Force Awakens and so bad with Star Trek? That's a whole nother
Star Trek
that's another
reboot. We'll have to do that one some other time.
Shame on you, and yes, that will be a future episode of the podcast talking about Star Trek.
Okay, so what did you? Why can't you just endorse The Force Awakens wholeheartedly?
I can. That movie I can endorse no problem. Okay. Now, when I was walking into it, I was a little worried because what our experience with the prequels, like I had been hurt before. Like those previous 3 movies that George Lucas did just shattered me. Like this doesn't. Like, it was bad, just so bad. They're so bad. Don't watch them. But I was very happy with The Force Awakens because it felt like a Star Wars movie where it's not about the flash, it's not about the big whiz bang stuff going on the screen. It's about the characters and the emotional development and the hero's journey of our Rey and our Stormtrooper Finn. Like I was super into Stormtrooper Finn. Like the fact that they were focusing a Stormtrooper and like making him a main character and going through the arc, like I was so in. I was like, yes, I want to know everything about what it's like to be a Stormtrooper.
Yeah,
please tell me.
They were a little too light on detail there, but it was very intriguing.
Yeah, it was great. Stormtroopers have always been such an iconic figure in sci-fi and just nerd culture that we want them to be more fleshed out.
I also think they really found some gems, with Daisy Ridley and John Boyega and Adam Driver and all those, relatively no-name actors at the time that were just real gems.
Yes, and that's another thing that you want. You don't want a big name that you've seen everywhere because you're carrying all of that baggage from all of their other work. And you get this nice fresh face and they do a great job and you just feel good about it.
Yeah.
Now, for Force Awakens, honestly, I give it the movie like an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
And the only reason it's not higher than that is because of unnecessary fan service that it really felt shoehorned into the movie.
All right.
I'm looking at you, random Han Solo scene where there was like
were they on the cargo ship and they were getting chased around by the space monster?
Yes, out of nowhere.
I love that scene.
For no reason. It served no purpose in the plot other than to have Han Solo do some one-liners with Chewbacca because you can't understand Chewbacca, and so Han Solo gets to make some witty comments.
He's a scruffy-looking nerf herder. He's got to, shrug and be like, yeah, I always tell the truth except for that one time.
So that scene, like, that's compared to older movies, right? So if you go to the original Star Wars, A New Hope, like, that is the point in the movie. Like, you had a big action scene, getting out of Mos Eisley and all that stuff. And then there was that long bridge that we did some storytelling and some exposition where they were on the Millennium Falcon going from point A to point B. And this was the perfect time in the movie for that, because in The Force Awakens, we had the big action scene where they had barely escaped with their lives from the weird, not Tatooine desert planet. They took off into outer space, and it's like, okay, now it's time to settle down. Let's get to know these people. Let's explore their relationships a little bit. Oh, wait, no, sorry, just kidding. We're going to have a big, giant space monster battle out of nowhere.
I felt like they kind of hand-waved the estrangement between Han and Leia. Like, okay, these two were in love, they start a family together, and then he just goes back. It felt like Return of Jafar. We just hit the reset button, and he's a scruffy-looking nerf herder again.
It felt like a contractual obligation to the director and the writers. It felt like Big Brother corporate saying, oh, and by the way, we've got the 3 original actors from the old movies, and you're going to put them in there. Oh, but that doesn't really make sense for the storyline. Oh, I'm sorry, did I stutter?
Yeah.
We got Harrison Ford on contract, so...
Yeah. So you could skip 2 years forward in time straight to the release of The Last Jedi at this point.
No, we're not. We're not going to do that, and I'll tell you why. Because this all feeds into the big machine. You have to look at the whole thing.
All right. So you're saying they're churning one out every year.
Yes, and so when I found that out, and I realized, so they announced Rogue One. It's like, oh, it's going to be a Star Wars movie. It's going to come out a year later, but it's not going to be part of the big trilogy. They need more time to do the storyline or whatever.
Right. This is in between cool.
Yeah, and this is coming out of the Force Awakens high. And so I'm like, okay, if they produce Star Wars movie of that quality every year and have, every other year is a main plot story and the other movies are, ancillary stories or the side stuff. That's great. It's an opportunity to flesh out the universe and explore other things.
Didn't you find it kind of trite that The Force Awakens ended in them, again attacking a Death Star, for the 3rd time?
It wasn't a Death Star. It was a whole planet.
Why are you?
They had to have the scene because they had to have the scene where they had so many people talk about this.
I get it. There's somebody on Endor bringing down the shield generator, and there's somebody up in space having the battle. I got it. I got it.
Well, that's not what I was going to talk about. I was going to make fun of them because they just had to do. Oh no, this was the Death Star, and this is Starkiller Base. Okay, whatever.
This is a planet that sucks the sun.
But you can only do it once.
And then the sun's gone. Great. We wasted a whole solar system.
Oh, it's fine. We got these engines. What are powering the engines? You just sucked up the sun. Okay, none of this makes any sense anymore.
Okay, so Rogue One.
So again, I was on a high. This could be good. High budget Star Wars movies showing me some other stuff. That's wonderful. So I went in with, this is probably your expectations thing again. I went into Rogue One with high expectations. Now, I want to hear what you thought about Rogue One.
I waited on it. My spidey sense was tingling or something, and I knew it wasn't going to be great. So when I went to see it, my expectations were at the 50% level. I also I'm not one of those people that shies away from the trailers and the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff like that. And I just finally went to see it out of just sheer morbid curiosity and found it to be mildly entertaining. I think I've watched it twice.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I'm big on storytelling, right? I am very much into the mechanics of how you tell a good story and how information is conveyed.
This one felt a bit lazy.
In an entertaining sense.
They went off that line from Return of the Jedi where they said, whatever, but many Bothans had to die to bring us this information or whatever. I don't remember. It was, I guess, New Hope.
Well, that's all Bothans are good for, apparently.
Yeah. So let's make a whole movie about that. Great, fine. It's a very rich universe with lots of ideas to explore. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that this could be worthwhile.
Well, but then this movie, the visuals were great, and that's all I can say about it. The visuals were great, and since there was no real Jedi in the movie, other than the very last scene, which is where bonus points come from.
I don't know. There was the blind guy that was always shooting people.
He was force sensitive. He didn't have a lightsaber. He didn't have force powers.
Well, and that's the difference, as we've talked before when we reviewed the Brandon Sanderson book about hard magic versus soft magic. The Force is soft magic.
Oh, very, very soft magic. And Disney has made it softer, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
I could hear your eye roll in the tone of your voice when you said okay. That was really funny. Now, all right, so... But the storytelling in Rogue One was a wreck. It was a train wreck. It was just everything that you're not supposed to do. The first handful of minutes. Go watch it again and just count the number of proper nouns that you're introduced to in the first 10 minutes of that movie. There's a threshold where after you hear so many proper nouns, your mind just starts filtering them out and they become meaningless.
Yeah, it's like reading War and Peace. You're right. And it's writing by committee. All right, we're going to make $1 billion off of this, so everyone get your best ideas out and let's write by committee.
All right, the high points of Rogue One. We got it. We're going to do the highs and the lows.
Okay.
The lows was most of the movie. The highs was since there was no Jedi, stormtroopers felt like menacing. Like stormtroopers felt like a real problem. Like they were hardcore, like what stormtroopers are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, every movie we've seen, stormtroopers are just fodder and
Right.
just ridiculous nonsense.
Just
like why do they even have these
bad
things?
aim and the blasters don't really matter,
Yeah, the droids make a lot more sense. They were terrible, but at least they're not alive.
right?
And then, of course, the last scene with Darth Vader. I love that scene because it gives you the one scene that you need from all of the previous, like the very first original trilogy Star Wars. Why is Darth Vader so menacing? Why is everybody so afraid of Darth Vader? That's why.
Yeah.
Because he walked down a hallway with no cover at like 20 armed guys shooting at him, and like he just came like a tank. He came like an avalanche. There was no stopping him.
Yeah, that was a very memorable scene and almost worth the price of admission all by itself.
Yeah, and it's 2 minutes long, and you can see it on YouTube. I recommend you do that and skip the rest of the movie. And whatever you do while you're watching that scene, don't think about the fact that Darth Vader just should have force pulled that little disc out of the guy's hand and walked back the other way he came.
Okay, so you went 4 years back in time to 2015 with The Force Awakens, then 2016 with Rogue One, and then 2017 was The Last Jedi.
Oh, Ben. The Last Jedi, and the last vestige of my childhood's love of Star Wars dying inside me.
So I think what happened is they made a very deliberate decision. I can't remember. I'm having this vague memory about there being some actual turn with creative disagreements at the highest levels, but they ended up giving the project to Rian Johnson.
So if you watch The Force Awakens, like you can feel J.J. Abrams setting up for a trilogy, right? So he's got Finn going through his hero's arc where he rejects everything he knows as a stormtrooper, and then he faces off with Phasma, and Phasma beats the snot out of him, or gets the better of him, and he gets the tar beat out of him at the end of Force Awakens.
Yeah.
And like you can feel the hero's journey there. He's going to go out into the universe, he's going to grow, and he's going to come back, and he's going to face down his past that is embodied by this Captain Phasma, and he's going to triumph over all of these negative ideas that he's had. Nope, we're going to throw that out the window. His the ones I'm most disappointed in.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, I was going to say, I feel like with the absence of George Lucas and his kind of wooden storytelling and dialogue, that Adam Driver was kind of given a chance to give us a really interesting analog for what Anakin could have been, where we really have this conflicted character with a nuanced backstory that's kind of waffling back and forth between the power of the dark side and the friendship and camaraderie of the lighter side.
Okay, now this is another part of that movie that really, I think they had this great opportunity, and I was in the theater, I remember thinking to myself, holy crap, they could pull this off in a realistic way, and it would be amazing. And that idea was Kylo Ren, like you said, was struggling with the darkness versus the light the entire movie. And then Rey kind of got introduced to the seduction of the dark side while she was going through her training with Luke Skywalker. And they were in the room with the big bad guy, and I thought to Kylo Ren kills the bad guy. Spoilers.
I can't even remember that guy's name. That's how unmemorable he was.
Oh, I think it's supposed to be Darth Sidious, but like nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Right. I've spent so much time learning all this lore, and I just don't care anymore. Like whatever. He's the creepy looking guy with the wrinkly face.
This is the same problem that you have in all of these things. Like you can't build this guy up to be like this all powerful, all knowing bad guy, and then just have him die like a chump, because then it undercuts everything that you've set up before that. Bad storytelling.
Yeah.
Again.
That little nuance you just said was characteristic of the entirety of what Rian Johnson did in this story, which why I think it failed.
Yes, absolutely. But we'll get to those other parts. But the opportunity they had that I wanted them to do and they missed it was they had a real like legitimate story way of switching the protagonist and the antagonist. Like Rey and Kylo Ren could have swapped places right there in that scene, and they could have pulled it off. Like Rey could have just been like, you know what? Screw it. The universe sucks. My parents were terrible. Let's just burn it to the ground. And Kylo could have been, I don't agree with like what he was going with. Like they could have storied it, and they could have had a great switch that would have been Like just a complete subversion of expectations and like a real shocking, gasping moment. But no, instead they had Kylo Ren throw a temper tantrum like a little kid and, oh, I want all of them, all of the lasers to shoot at him. Like, didn't we come down here to kill a bunch of other people? No, everybody shoot him.
I remember seeing a lot of criticism surrounding that scene, both good and bad. I mean, it was very artistic. It was that giant salt flat with the red earth underneath it, and the AT-AT walkers marching towards this giant sheer cliff with a rebel base in it, and it was very epic in scope for as small-minded as that film was. But then it just turned into like kind of a grudge of one guy against another guy for really unclear reasons. I didn't understand why Kylo Ren was so mad at Luke.
Because it was all Luke's fault. Luke is the one that turned him away and screwed up his whole life. Or he had daddy issues. That's what it was. It was surrogate daddy issues.
And that's something they didn't establish in The Force Awakens, as far as I'm concerned.
No, they didn't establish that in Force Awakens at all. Luke Skywalker was some mysterious mountain-dwelling hermit, he was better as that. Like, the character that they had in The Last Jedi for Luke Skywalker was
and Mark
comically
Hamill,
bad.
a bit to his discredit, was very vocal in his displeasure with where all of this went, and he's wishing he could take it back.
I'm with Mark Hamill. Like, I think all of his criticism was right on point, and I think people should have listened to him. Like, I remember Disney had to pull him from all of all the promotions and the interviews because he was bad-mouthing the movie so much. And honestly, I'm kind of on his side.
Well,
it doesn't feel like...
it's the old history is written by the victors kind of thing. Because like with Tom Holland and the conflict between Disney and Sony over the Spider-Man property, the fact that he was vocal in his opposition and won played out well. But if he hadn't, it had just looked like sour grapes. He probably had not gotten the next film, and he would just be a footnote in the next Spider-Man reboot.
Man, Disney versus Sony. That's another podcast topic that we need to talk about.
All right.
That was epic.
So give the highs and lows on Last Jedi.
Okay. The lows was a lot of the movie. Like, it was just bad. Bad characterization. The storytelling was disjointed and weird. The whole thing with Rey and the girl that was introduced, I don't even remember her name. And it's like, oh, we're all trapped in this convoy and we're all going to die, except for the people that can get on the shuttle and take off and do whatever they want for half the movie and then come back with no consequences.
Yeah, her name was Rose.
Rose. Completely forgettable as a character. A complete cardboard cutout. No depth to her whatsoever. Like, it was just so bad.
Yeah, and like we talked about, how they break the rules of the magic system and the combat and everything. Yeah, just...
Okay, and that was honestly, like, this exists in my brain as both the lowest and the highest point of that movie. Because I did see it in theaters. And I remember it was very well filmed. It was very well produced, I should say. It wasn't, obviously they didn't go film Star Destroyers. But when they had that cruiser, like, light speed into the capital ship, and, like, in the theater, it went, like, the sound completely cuts out, right? And then it starts at, like, a sub-audible level in, like, the subwoofers and just increases. So, like, you feel the room shaking before you actually hear anything as they bring up the sound to try to encompass this devastation that just happened.
Yeah.
And that was awesome. And it was really, really great. I'm glad I saw that in the theater. At the same time, they broke every rule that they've created in the Star Wars universe, and now nothing that anyone has ever done in any of the Star Wars movies makes any sense.
So, something I kind of mentioned earlier related to the Star Wars properties is how much of my life I spent in the Star Wars universe independent of the films. I never read the books, but I played all of the Star Wars space sims. TIE Fighter, yep. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, Rogue Squadron, all those, and they all have their own stories associated with them, and you kind of absorb the lore by osmosis. It's not trying to make major plot points, it's more like just trying to have you act out as a faceless soldier or one of the battles that feeds into the bigger Star Wars story. And then playing the Knights of the Old Republic games and all those kinds of things, you're just absorbing all of this. And when I look back on all these movies, even the prequels and the last 15, 16, 17 movies, I look back on it as the parts that fit into my good image of the Star Wars universe. And every one of the movies, no matter how bad some of them are, all have those beautiful moments of brilliant execution, artistic acrobatic combat, or fantastical ideas that just enrich that world farther in my mind. So I don't really hate any of the movies.
Oh, well, I flat out hate The Last Jedi.
All right.
Like, hands down, no question. Like, because... And it goes back to the storytelling and the magic system thing again. They broke all their own rules.
Yeah, don't even start me about the scene on the casino planet. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, we're not going there. But, all right, so two things. One, Yoda, Ghost Yoda, lightning bolts the tree and burns it down.
Yeah, we break all the rules of the magic system.
Yeah, it's okay. Hey, Ghost Yoda, we could use some lightning bolts in strategic places throughout the series.
Right, what are you going to get tired if you make too many? Come on, bring them down. Yeah. Rain fire.
I can think of 3 scenes where a lightning bolt would have been very, very helpful. Luke, it's like, I'm going to force project an image across the galaxy.
Across the galaxy. Uh-huh.
Like, they kind of mention it in that movie, but like, would it have been so bad to have him actually there? Like, what if he had actually been there, Ben? Would that have been terrible? He could have died an epic... I think it would have been more impactful if he died an epic death on Kylo's lightsaber and then imparted one last piece of master wisdom to the apprentice. That would have been much more emotional.
So Disney struck the $4 billion deal to buy the Star Wars intellectual property in 2012. So that's when this whole machine started to churn, and I'm sure they decided to do The Last Jedi back in 2012, and that was 5 years later. So, by this point, by the time The Force Awakens comes out, the whole machine is moving to churn out one new movie a year.
Right.
They do Force Awakens, they do Rogue One, they do The Last Jedi, and then in 2018 was Solo.
The first thing that they should have done, and you can't tell me that Disney doesn't have the money for this. They need to get guys. We spent $4 billion on the IP.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. We spent $4 billion in the IP. Let's spend a little money here. Let's get like 10 of the best writers in the room. Let's lock them in a conference room for a month. We'll feed them water and sandwiches under the door, and have them get all of it straight. You know what I mean? Like, that's just
like the way that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has shown this knack for having a story arc that spans, these everything from Ant-Man to the Avengers, from little projects to big ones. They all kind of feed into this larger storytelling thing that feels like every little bit adds to the larger universe.
Yes, and like I understand the idea that directors and writers and like certain talent that you bring on to produce a movie have a lot of creative leeway when you're talking about this stuff, but at the same time, Disney is the king of locking that crap down. Like, you ever read any of the contracts that any of the Marvel actors were locked under when they were filming the Avengers movies or when they were on contract with Disney? Like, there was very strict behavioral rules that they had, very strict like public presence and vocabulary rules. Like, Disney is very, very good at reining that stuff in and like, okay, we love you, you're great, but you're going to fit into this box or you're not going to play with us.
Hold up, what now? You read a contract?
I didn't read an actual contract, Ben. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a nerd.
I don't know, every now and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to read this end user license agreement before I install this software, just so I know what this is all about. You made it sound like you actually read one of these actors' contracts.
No, there's lots of things you can go find on the internet that have like synopsis of some of the requirements that the actors were put under. One of the biggest reasons that Chris Evans got out of it was just the amount of
He wanted
stuff.
His life back?
Yeah, just the requirements and the lockdowns that he lived under when he was on contract with Disney.
Yeah. All right, give your ups and downs on Solo.
Okay, so that was Last Jedi was 2017. We're on the one film a year track. So Solo came out in 2018. And so I've split mind when it comes to Solo. Now, if you look at Solo and you ignore all the proper nouns, and you think of it as a random movie set in a sci-fi universe, and it's just a heist movie set in the Star Wars universe, then you know what? It's not bad. Like, it's good. It's got high points. It's got witty comebacks and the banter and like a semi-intelligent plot line. They hook up with the mercenaries way too quick. And, like, trust relationships are built from nothing. Like, we can talk about nitpick it all day.
Yeah.
But it was pretty decent.
I'm with you. I can always use another sci-fi heist movie in my life.
Absolutely. Now, if I'm going to think about it as Star Wars canon, like, oh, this is the origin story of one of the most beloved breakout characters in all of this, lore, then no, I hate it. It's terrible.
Yeah,
it's like,
it felt like they only had two objectives. Like, how did Han meet Chewie, and what does it mean to make the Kessel Run in under 12 parsecs?
Which is, I feel like somewhere at some point they admitted that was a mistake. Like, why are you trying to fix it? Just like, I'm okay with the owning of the parsecs versus time thing. Like, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, they kind of did the same thing in Star Trek, where, like, in the prequels, they went back to school and showed us what the Kobayashi Maru was. It wasn't just this joke that everyone talked about and you never actually knew what they meant by it. Now we actually know what it means to make the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
Yeah, but this is the problem with these things. Like, this is a standard writing tool that they use. If you're watching a TV show and they want to make a character seem funny, then they will jump cut to the character not saying a joke, but saying a random punchline that almost makes no sense. And then all the other characters around them laughing hysterically.
Right.
Because then that gives you, the audience, the impression, oh, this is a funny character. But at the same time, the writers don't actually have to write a really funny joke.
I don't know, but this is different. It's like the reason Han Solo was a legendary smuggler. So if we're going to go back and tell his story, we got to tell how he met his sidekick and why he's legendary.
Right. No, and I get that. But there's some things that you just got to leave on the table. Like, you can't do, like, honestly, the best thing that they could have done with the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, it would have been like the very closing scene with Chewie in the first mate seat, and they get a job. It's like, hey, I got a job for you, kid. We need you to make the Kessel Run. And then Han looking at Chewie going, that doesn't sound too bad. And then just roll credits right there.
I love it. And it would never happen, and it didn't. So that was 2018. And here in a week? 2 weeks? Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is coming out, directed again by J.J. Abrams this time instead of Rian Johnson.
I feel like he's taking that as a personal challenge. It's like, all right, I set up this really great thing, and you drop the ball. Let's see how many other pieces I can put back together.
Maybe. So when we next record our podcast, I think we'll both have seen The Rise of Skywalker by then, and we can talk about that. So
I don't know if I was going to see it in the theaters, but now I guess I'm going to have to.
All right, good. So here's the thing. We've kind of talked about how in 2012 when Disney required the Star Wars IP that they made this plan to do a movie every year, and they've stayed true to it so far. I don't think The Mandalorian was part of that plan. I think that came on when they got the gleam in their eye for creating their own streaming service and were looking for their killer app. And so this is kind of outside of that master plan.
That makes perfect sense because, like, if you look at all their other IP, they've got a ton of Marvel IP, and a lot of those shows run Netflix and have been canceled since they have their own streaming service now.
Yeah, I've tried a few of them with
Disney
mixed results.
They're hit and miss, some of them. I thought Daredevil. I watched the first season of Daredevil. Thought that was really good.
Yeah, I like Daredevil.
All right, but anyway, they were releasing a lot of the old Disney movies, the classics, and their TV shows in bits and pieces to the other streaming services. Sure. But now that they have their own, they pull all of it and they dump all of it into Disney Plus. Which, by the way, I bought Disney Plus and then we went in and started looking at it. I'm like, I want to know what's actually in here. And I saw all of the early '90s classics that I watched when I was coming home from elementary school. Like, oh, they've got Darkwing Duck. Totally justifies this entire purchase.
Yeah, I've been watching Gummy Bears.
I remember, like, my son goes, what's Darkwing Duck? And I remember the night we got it, I'm like, sit down, we're going to watch Darkwing Duck, and it's going to be awesome. And then we started, and we're watching, and he's like, this is good. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, this is so bad.
See, that's the thing. I watch Gummy Bears again, I'm like, this is still pretty good.
Yeah. I guess, like, your taste in cartoon shows hasn't changed.
All right.
You still have... Yeah, go ahead.
Let's review The Mandalorian.
So The Mandalorian, for those of you who are not aware, which I don't think you can possibly not be aware, it is 40-minute show, and it's just releasing. It's getting a lot of buzz because of its release schedule. Unlike other streaming services that just dump an entire season on you all at once, so you can binge watch it. Disney is doing the traditional, the classic, the time-worn.
Yeah, there might be a new one out tonight that I haven't seen yet.
I think they're supposed to come out on Thursday nights.
I thought they come out on Friday nights, but anyway, there might be a new one out.
Okay, well, and my wife and I, we're going to watch it.
Yeah,
because frankly, it's really good. It's really good.
Yeah. So my initial feel for it is kind of like Firefly. I mean, it's this like Western style space serial. The only thing it's missing that Firefly had was kind of an ensemble cast. This doesn't quite have that like ensemble feel to it.
So I've heard this show compared to like a samurai show, where the first couple episodes told a very consistent throughput storyline, and then it turned into this episodic thing, which I was going to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't know how I'm landing on this yet. Is my feedback for it? Like the first couple episodes, we have the Mandalorian, who's wearing the classic Boba Fett looking armor. And for those of you who are listening, no, Boba Fett was not unique. Boba Fett was a Mandalorian. There's a whole race of Mandalorians. They all look and train and do the same things. So, and he's just gritty and real, and he's just the actor. All right, I will say the actor's doing a great job because he has yet to take off his mask in 4 or 5 episodes.
Yeah,
he's got a complete head covering. You have never seen this guy's face, and at the same time, he's still able to impart like his emotions and his he walks like there's so many scenes of him walking down the street. Yeah, he's walking down the street, and just him walking, you're like, there is nobody on this planet that could kick this guy's butt.
Yeah, you're so right. I love the endorsement my teenage daughter gave of it. She was like, I've never even seen his face, but he is so hot.
That is both awesome and disturbing coming from your teenage daughter.
But it's like, like you said, somehow, even though he's wearing a mask and a cape, he's just portraying confidence and competence and danger.
Yeah, no, he feels like he is like hands down the most dangerous person you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And like the first episode when he's got the helmet on, it's the whole thing where he's not taking it off the whole show. Like I immediately thought, okay, well they're going to do the thing that all TV shows do, and eventually he'll take off the helmet. It'll be this big old reveal and this big thing. And you know what? I've flipped on that. I hope we never see his face. I never want to see this actor's face because it doesn't matter what's under
Wilson's
the mask.
Wilson's mouth over the back fence on.
Yeah. This is the perfect neutral mask. Like we are filling in the absolute best things that we want under that mask in our minds, and whatever comes out from it will not be as good as what we've imagined.
Yeah, like seeing the villain at the end of a horror movie. It's always just a letdown. It's better when it's unknown.
Exactly. So I don't ever want to see his face.
Okay. Well, and there's this thing they kind of did in the John Wick film series where there's like this underlying lore of what it means to be a Mandalorian. This kind of covenant and promise and reward associated with it as long as you keep the rules. And so, yeah, you want him to be true to his commitment.
It's so from outside of the show, that's another thing that I really like about this show is that they're treating us, the viewers, like adults. There's no big exposition dumps. There is no big explanation. There's no big text scrawl or text crawl at the beginning of the show. They just drop you into the middle of it, and you know what? You're all big boys and girls. You'll pick it up from context.
Yep, I love it. Yeah, you can.
Yes.
And I think isn't the director of it the same guy that directed Iron Man? What is his name?
I am very bad at names, so I have no idea.
Directed by that's not the film.
Ben, you are usually like up to speed on all of your research. Like you have done all the book reports and have your sources cited before we record. You're having an off week, my friend.
I guess. Tired of this week. So it was directed by Jon Favreau, and I'm pretty sure he's been directing The Mandalorian.
I've heard that name before. I don't know what he's done otherwise. You got to IMDb him for us?
Yeah, well, I know some of the episodes have been directed by others. What I've heard, and you're right, I'm a little bit rusty on my research, is that there was some very insistence by some of the creative people involved in trying to, one, keep secrecy around it, and two, kind of maintain a bit of integrity, which I think is what's protected it from this rampant commercialism you were complaining about.
So, talking about rampant commercialism, I think this show is actually sneakily... I read an article a couple of days ago, and I hadn't thought about this until I read it. And the guy points out that this is at the same time the least and most commercial show that Disney has put out in a long time. For that, I mean, it doesn't feel like a cash grab. You're watching it and it just feels like a good TV show. At the same time, both of the main characters are literal toys that you can go buy in the store. Like, one of them is a faceless dude in power armor.
Here's the thing. So it was Jon Favreau, the director of Iron Man, and who also plays Happy in like all the Spider-Man movies and stuff like that. He wrote and produced The Mandalorian, and I heard, it's just a rumor, but I'm pretty sure it plays out, that he insisted that they not produce and sell Baby Yoda toys in advance of the series to maintain the secrecy of that as a surprise in the series. And now they're having a bit of a problem where it's the holiday season, Christmas is coming up, and everyone wants to buy their kid a Baby Yoda toy, and they can't be found. So there's like bootleg ones, and Disney lawyers are having a field day, and all kinds of stuff, and it's a big flap on the internet.
I feel like that was brought up in the staff meeting. It's like, well, what are the downsides of this? Well, we may not have enough demand for the holiday season. That's a downside. The upside is that they will fly off the shelves for hundreds of dollars each, and we are going to make a ton of money in cease and desist lawsuits. Like, I can see Disney suing like every other grandma.
They're suing like
right
Etsy old ladies for releasing like crochet patterns for Baby Yoda dolls.
Yeah, this is Disney. Like, there is no larger soulless, like, litigating monster that exists in the universe.
Well, back to what you were saying about them treating us like adults, one thing I love is that they really, you can tell that Jon Favreau is a true Star Wars fan. Like, when they take us to Tatooine and go into the Mos Eisley Cantina, I feel like I'm going back to like the Cheers bar, you know, like someplace where everybody knows your name. There's a few of the same aliens there, and then the Mandalorian goes and sits down in Han Solo's spot. Did you notice that in episode 5?
You know what? I did not notice that.
He sits
but you're right.
In the spot where Han shot first.
That kind of hurts me a little bit.
But,
all right, so while I was watching it, I was happy that it wasn't like super fan serviced. But now you say that, you're right.
But they don't beat you over the head with it so much that you didn't even notice. I did.
You're right. But that's a plus side, right? Like, like one of the problems with The Force Awakens that I brought up was that they ham-fisted all of the fan service.
So it rewards you if you're looking for it, and if not, you just enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah. This is just another scene that we're in. This has nothing to do with anything.
And I found the episodes to be hit or miss. I mean, there was the one where it's like shootout at the OK Corral, and then there's the other where like the samurai comes to town and arms the locals against the local lord that's been abusing the people, and you know.
Well, and that's where I'm like, I'm not sure where I'm falling on this yet, because it's turning into like, it had the consistent episode to episode storyline, and now it's kind of turning into this almost 3-camera sitcom. Where it's like, okay, next episode, reset the story. We're going to do something completely different today. So whatever happened last episode almost doesn't matter, and we're going to tell this story now.
Like the old Kung Fu TV show, you know, where you would just pack up and go to a new town and come in and, you know, make friends and rescue people.
Exactly. It makes it for good writing, and it makes it so that this show could, you know, go on for forever.
It keeps looking like they're going to punt the Baby Yoda problem because, you know, he's not real portable and he's not real involved in the action. He's more of a liability than an asset. And I keep waiting for them to be like, all right, that's weighing down the story too much. But he keeps hanging in there. And it's meant to be an arc. It's going somewhere. I just don't know where yet.
Well, and there's the underlying intrigue from the early episodes where the old Empire overlord was willing to pay exorbitant prices for this Baby Yoda. Like, in my mind, is there any way that this Baby Yoda isn't a clone of the actual Yoda? Like, I mean, that's the only thing that makes it in my mind.
Yeah. Now, when you give your impression of Baby Yoda, as far as, like, do you feel like this is just mad cash grab, or do you find like it's a good use of the IP as they have it?
So, the Baby Yoda is interesting for a lot of reasons. One of them, completely unrelated to your question, is he has the same magic that R2-D2 had, which I love. And that magic is that the main characters are all normal height and they go walking off. Like you see the scene where he's walking and Baby Yoda is like dropping behind immediately. And then they jump cut to the next scene and then
he's
Baby
there.
Yoda is standing right next to him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like in a Friday the 13th movie where there's a girl running at top speed through the woods and Jason's just like strolling after her, and you cut away and cut back and he's still behind her.
Yeah, exactly. This is the R2-D2 magic.
Yeah.
That's what I'm calling it.
Okay,
We're
I like
inside
it.
Star Wars. Yeah.
It's the R2-D2 force power. He's always there. No matter how slow he's going, he's right behind you.
No matter how far you ran into the town to get into a fist fight with the beefy chick, he's going to be standing right there drinking his soup watching you guys fight.
and the internet has given some great memes out of this one. That's one of my favorites, is when he's fighting the beefy chick and Baby Yoda's standing there with the cup of juice.
Soup or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, man.
No, that's the Baby Yoda memes. I can't get enough. Like, I just want my Reddit feed to be nothing but Baby Yoda memes all day.
Okay, so Alicia goes, I have this one friend that just loves Baby Yoda. I'm like, yeah, so does everyone. She's like, no, she really loves it. I think she's posted every Baby Yoda meme. I'm like, what? Come on, how many can there be? She's like, okay, I'm going to count them. And I'd forgotten, and she comes back to me like 20 minutes later, and she's like, she's posted 51. I'm like, what? 51 Baby Yoda memes on one Facebook feed.
They're so good, and they're all so good. I think my favorite so far has been I would like destroy Baby Groot and burn his body to keep Baby Yoda warm.
He's adorable. 10 out of 10 as far as I'm concerned. Even if it is a mad cash grab, it was just... And it also feels like there's something important happening. Like Baby Yoda, there's this foreboding about him. Like the world, the Star Wars universe has changed with the destruction of the second Death Star and the disappearance of the Emperor. And the Jedi are all gone, and no one knows what the Force is anymore. We're back to just blasters and your wits to save you. Except Baby Yoda kind of represents the old times.
Well, and this is
the old
why
Republic.
I think. Oh yeah, there you go. This is why I think Baby Yoda is so important. Not in of himself, even though he is the best, just flat out the best. But he is an important storytelling tool for the Mandalorian, because he is an external vessel that tells us two very important things about the Mandalorian and his what he's gone through without him having to talk a lot and do a bunch of exposition and here's my tragic backstory. And the idea is that he got hired for this job for stupid amounts of money and found out that he was supposed to bring in what is essentially Baby Yoda. And like you can tell, like the whole time he started asking questions, which is way outside of his normal operating procedure. He's just talking in general and so he can sense there's something's fishy here. First of all, I love it. So he is very perceptive of that something big, like the world is going to pivot on this Baby Yoda for some reason. I don't know why, but I can feel it. So one, that just shows him as a very intuitive, clever, thoughtful person. And the second is there's a person under there. There is some serious compassion in there. Like this, he has put himself in mortal danger several times for what is essentially a green frog thing that he just met. Yeah, it's kind of the classic conflict in one of these things where you just have this rogue, like in the A New Hope, where Han Solo was just in it for the money, and he was like, whatever, you do your rebellion thing, I got my money, I'm out of here. And then right at the very last minute, when it looks like all hope is lost, he shows up, turns out to be the X Factor, and saves the day. And the Mandalorian's kind of like that about Baby Yoda. He's like, whatever, I'm just in it for the money, but wait a minute. I got to save the kid. I got to find out what's going on here. And he breaks his code of his organization and, gets it felt very John Wicky to me that, they took out a ransom on his head and everybody's after him. And very cool. Yeah, it shook him up. And that's where they pick up the storytelling. And I think it's been great. I love the Mandalorian. I love that he doesn't talk very much. And he's just, okay. I can't get it. All right, so I know. Well, there's more to say, Ben. Well, no, I have more to say too. Okay. But you go first. Okay. The one thing that I found in this show that I have not had in a very, very long time with a TV show is every single time the credits come on at the end, I look at my wife, and my wife looks at me, and we go, wait, it's over already? Yeah. Have you experienced that? You actually, I haven't been sucked into a show like this in a long time. I guess you're right. I haven't yet. And with fictional TV shows and stuff, I wear out on them really fast. And this one, I'm thirsty for more, which is a sign of a good show. They don't want to just
feed you so much you're sick of it and you want to move on. Yeah, I want to explore this universe some more. I want to meet some more people. I want to find out what's going on. So I think Jon Favreau might have been a fan of the games, and I want to talk about this for a sec. That I noticed that, like, for instance, like you said, after he brought Baby Yoda back and got this giant ransom, then it felt like we were in a Knights of the Old Republic game. Like, I used to play those as a Mandalorian, and you start out with this, like, trashy armor that can barely deflect blasters and don't go anywhere near a lightsaber. But then he takes all that money and he goes back to the guild and he uses the money to upgrade his armor, and he walks out with shiny new armor. And to me, that felt exactly like playing one of those games.
Oh yeah, he totally leveled up.
Yeah, he did. He did a big quest, got a bunch of money, and used it to level up his armor so that he could take on harder quests.
Another thing I love about the Mandalorian is that he thinks he's stealthy wearing his mirror shine armor around. Like, he's constantly like ducking and like, oh, get your head down. Like, dude, you're wearing a mirror on your face. Like, who are you fooling?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, the Beskar steel has like a big religious impact and like a serious faith weight when it comes to talking about Mandalorians.
But when it comes to things like how his armor is, or his blaster, or his rifle, it feels like, to me, like there was a person that was one of the programmers on the game, like applying like D&D 6th edition rules or something to what's going on. Like, well, he can only take 2 direct hits from that rifle on this level of armor, and that's what's happening underneath everything that's going on.
Well, and they don't ever explain it very well, and they don't have to because they're treating you like a grown up. But like, he gets hit by the big rhino thing in one of the early episodes.
Yeah.
And then, like, he's knocked, forever away. And you think, how can he possibly have survived that? He's wearing, like, a rickety little, Little League catcher's chest plate.
Uh-huh.
And they just for a second, you see that it's cracked and broken. There's, like, wires and stuff on the inside. And, like, that's your clue. It's like, no, there is actually some serious technology that is embedded in this armor. It's not, he didn't strap, a freaking, like a grill or a frying pan to his chest and went out bounty hunting.
Yeah.
Like, this armor has, it's powered. It enhances a lot of his physical traits. It has probably inertial dampeners and crap in it. Like, this is serious Star Wars technology that, whether you get it or not, we don't care. Like, it just works. Deal with it.
Right. And you can tell that they intended that kind of lore when you hear people go, oh, look at his armor, and they say something technical about it that hints that other people understand that what he's bringing to the fight.
Oh, yeah. Just the looks that he gets. Like, the fact that he's wearing mirror shine armor that is literally made of money, like, is only like a secondary bullet point to the fact that, that guy is no joke.
So right after this, I'll probably go watch the next episode. I can't wait to find out what Baby Yoda's all about. I want to know more about the Mandalorian, guild that he belongs to. I'm interested to see.
It's a faith of warrior monks, Ben. It's a religion. Okay, like.
I kind of like the idea that, like, they all act as like a unified one, so that one of them can kind of vaguely represent all of them, and by keeping the mask on, they preserve that, like, concealed identity.
Yes, that's a good point. Very cool. They talk about how only one of us could go out at a time. It's like, wouldn't they notice the difference? But you're right, maybe they wouldn't. It's right. And everybody just calls him the Mandalorian, like there's only one of them.
Right, exactly.
And he's never introduced himself. You notice that? Like, walked in at Mos Eisley Bar, it's like looking for work. And some other guy across the way, hey, Mando, I got some work for you.
Got a reputation.
It's like, well, obviously the only guy wearing that armor is going to be a Mandalorian. Like, he's never gone to that guy and been like, call me Fred.
All right.
He's just, no,
I'm about Star Wars out.
That's not possible, but okay, we can move on.
Okay, so that brings us to Bad at English.
How? How does that possibly bring us to Bad at English?
It doesn't. So the phrase I've chosen for today's Bad at English is pitch up. Pitch up, I couldn't find any etymology of it, but it's an informal phrase that means to arrive in a place, and I think it probably comes from cricket, the way that we have, like, lots of baseball metaphors and stuff like that. Okay. And it's frequently used to just, in an informal way, talk about showing up somewhere or arriving somewhere or turning up somewhere. So, like, I would say what happened to me today is I was late getting home from work and needed to get my son to dance practice, but I didn't want to pitch up in uniform, so I went inside to change.
Wow. There's okay, so with your Bad at English, there is a lot to unpack here. First of all, did you ever go to any cricket games? Did you get big into cricket while you're overseas?
My experience with cricket happened kind of interestingly because I had a really unique opportunity at one point to deploy with the Royal Air Force as a member of their service. And while I was there, I was in their Network Operations Center, Management Center at Al Udeid Air Base, but in the British place. And it was during the Cricket World Cup. And everyone around me cared deeply about it, and they would turn it on in the TV in the office, and everyone would stop working and watch this.
Wow.
So even though I never went to a
forever.
cricket match, and yes. And so I was kind of immersed in it while I was deployed. That also happened to me once with professional wrestling, but that was with Americans. So I've never watched it before or since in my life, but for that 1 month, I was completely immersed in it. So I know more than the average person about cricket.
Nice. Okay. That was my first question. The second question is, you had to get your son to dance practice?
Yes. So, well, I think this will lead into something you want to talk about later, and that's kind of the holiday busyness. It feels like this year is the worst for us right now as far as the holiday busyness goes right now. And just the perfect storm happened, and we had like 3 activities all going on simultaneously tonight. And I like melted down and at one point I was doing none of them. I was like, my wife was texting me, she's like, why aren't you here? And my son was like, why aren't you here? And I was just like playing Magic on the computer. I just couldn't take it. But
that almost exact same scenario played out, like just the holiday busyness for me last weekend. And we can't talk about that, but let's finish up our bet at English first.
Okay, so
tell me what
the reason my son was at
dance
dance practice was like full circle for when I was his age. What happened was there was a local dance studio, they were doing a production, and they're looking around and they're like, we need more boys. But no boys are going to come pay our tuition fee to dance, and we can't do our performance without some boys, so let's offer free scholarships. So my son got swept up in a round of recruiting, and I don't know if it was so much as interested in dance as he's just bad at saying no. And it was one of his older sister's friends, and they talked him into going down to the dance studio. My wife and I had no idea what was going on. We never went with him to single practice. We never met the instructor. We didn't pay these people a red cent. We didn't buy any uniforms. We didn't buy any dance shoes. He just was disappearing once a week for 4 hours and would come back, and we were like, what are you doing? He's like, well, we have a performance on the 13th of December. So tonight was the Nutcracker, and I went last night to the rehearsal, and it was like 10,000 little girls in tutus and ballet shoes and like 5 boys.
Okay, which son is this and how old is he?
This is my 3rd son, and he's 13.
Okay, so your 13-year-old son was disappearing for 4 hours a week, and like that didn't break your noise threshold?
Well, I mean, I dropped him off and picked him up, but he's not real good at coming back and saying, here's what happened and here's what's going on. So he was in the Nutcracker. I'm like, I played the music. I'm like, this? He's like, I don't know. That's not my scene. I'm like, it's Tchaikovsky. It's a Russian ballet. And yeah, that's what it was. So they did like the Nutcracker tonight.
So what role did he play? Was he the Mouse King?
He was a townsperson.
Wow. So we have this hardcore recruiting drive because we don't have enough boys, and they made him a townsperson?
Yeah.
That's lame.
Yeah. I mean, there are other boys who are like 17 who've been doing ballet. I mean, there's no boys. You know, there were boys in the leads, but they just didn't have enough filler, I guess.
Are you aware that you can put girls in like overalls and a hat, and like from a distance, from the 3rd row, they look like boys?
But girls don't go into ballet to get dressed up like that.
Valid. That's valid. You'd have some really angry dance moms.
Yeah.
If you
turn their little girls into boys.
Oh, look, mommy, here's my costume. Well, I don't think so.
Yeah. So I didn't want to pitch up in uniform to the ballet production of the Nutcracker.
Bringing it back. You are so good at that. Like, I will lead you far afield, sir, and you always bring it back to your bad at English.
So we got, 2 weeks left before Christmas? How's your Christmas shopping going?
Oh, Ben, Christmas shopping. Christmas shopping, Ben. Okay, so I've actually transitioned most of the family away from traditional Christmas shopping gifts. And that's because a couple years ago I took up woodworking as kind of a hobby.
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic.
It's fun. I enjoy it. I enjoyed it a lot more when I had more time after work to actually go in the garage and tinker around. now that I've got a real job and I'm not self-employed anymore, I can't just blow off all of my customers to go tool around in my garage.
Yeah.
So it's more difficult to find the time to spend away from the family and just, tinker.
I gotta put a picture of the woodworking gift you made me for my birthday. I'll put that in the show notes because you can do the kinds of things that, like, it doesn't matter. It takes, I don't know, I'm sure it takes you a lot of time, but it seems to make gift giving easy because it's not like, well, I don't know if they have one of these or not. The fact that you made it yourself from scratch pieces of wood just makes it so unique that you overcome the hurdle of whether or not somebody needs it.
Well, I'm very glad that you liked your birthday gift.
I love it. It's fantastic. I love
so, one thing I want to point out is that was the gift that I gave to everybody for Christmas last year, and it just took me that long to ship it to
you. No, you were saving it for my birthday. Stop it.
When is your birthday? It's like March or May, isn't it?
Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah, so I remember it was like way, way after Christmas when I finally got around to shipping it.
Yeah, and it arrived like on my birthday on the 1st of June.
Well, happy birthday, buddy.
Yeah.
I'll shoot for the same shipping ID next time.
All right, so you don't have time to do woodworking gifts this year, so what are you doing instead?
No, I know. Well, no, actually, I do. That's part of the holiday busyness is I've got planned out. I've got so many hours of work that needs to be done for the gifts that I am making for everybody this year for Christmas.
Are you doing a theme, just like making 10 of the same thing?
And that's what happened last year. Is I made what did I make? Cutting boards. I made cutting boards last year, and so I just you get into a rhythm and you knock them out and you just make a whole bunch of them and you give them to everybody. Yeah. And that's the same plan this year. I have a gift that I am making. I am churning out a bunch of them. And everybody's going to get the same gift, but with slight alterations. Like these ones will be made with this wood, and these ones will have this pattern.
Lisa's doing the same thing. She's turning out these piecework quilted wall hangings of Mary holding the baby Jesus. It looks like a stained glass window. It's absolutely gorgeous. But she just instead of just cutting out one, she cut out 4.
Now, I was very deliberate in not mentioning what I'm making because this episode will be posted before Christmas, sir. So you just spoiled a lot of Christmas gifts. I think you might want to...
None of the people she's giving them to listen to this podcast.
Well, there's another problem. We need to get on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of these
they're all going to get a hand-quilted Mary holding the baby Jesus and a podcast subscription.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Listen to our podcast. Like and subscribe. Links in the show notes. Okay. So that adds to the holiday business. But then the holiday shopping, what happens is, so there are some things that I can make for my wife. The hardest person that you'll ever shop for in your whole life. And I have a plan, and I'm going to make these things for her. But that's not enough. Like your spouse, I feel like it's not enough. I got to do something more. And the reason for that is that Nicole is an amazing gift giver. Like just flat out, hands down, so good. And the reason is, like, every time I get a gift from her, I feel like she's put so much time and energy and thought into it. Like, it'll be a random thing that I had mentioned 7 or 8 months before. And then she had just bought it that day and hid it in the closet. Or she remembered it months and months later that I wanted it and bought it for me. Or I've never even seen this thing, but she just knows me so well and has thought so much about what the things that I would like that she was able to pull this out of the infinitesimal items that you can buy on Amazon. And it was just the perfect expression of how thoughtful and how well she knows me.
That's a special gift, man. Why do you think you should be able to replicate that?
Well, but this is... I'm trying to. Like, I want to impart. I want her to feel that same level of thoughtfulness and love, and like I want to pour all these emotions into this physical object that I give to her, and I want her to feel those emotions when she gets it.
This is something she's really good at. I mean, why I don't listen to I don't know, Donny Osmond singing and go, I should be able to sing like that. I go, wow, that guy really has a gift.
So you're saying that maybe I'm just not as thoughtful as Nicole is when it comes to gift giving?
Is it just thoughtfulness? Because the way you just described it with so many superlatives, and it was so multidimensional. It wasn't just one thing. It wasn't just pure thoughtfulness. It was creativity. It was opportunism. There was so much involved.
Right, and if we got Nicole in the room and asked her, like, how do you do this?
She might not be able to tell us.
Oh, no, she would have a completely different answer. She'd be like, I don't know. I just bought something that I thought he would like.
It's a gift.
And like, this is the thing. Maybe I am blowing it out of proportion, but I feel like, I don't know, just the fact that she gets me the perfect things. I put a lot of emotional investment into that.
Yeah.
And maybe she's just getting me good gifts or gifts that she knows that I would like. But I would like, at the same time, to be able to try to give her something that would try to impart those same feelings that I'm feeling. Isn't that what gift giving is all about?
Well, okay. Have you ever taken Dr. Gary Chapman's quiz called The 5 Love Languages?
Ooh. No, but I know a lot of people that have. No, you know what? I'm not going to pretend like I have any idea what I'm talking about.
So
here.
He's a marriage and family
I've heard
therapist. And he's learned over time that basically one of the ways that he's been able to heal relationships is by discerning what someone's primary and secondary love languages are. And he's narrowed it down to 5. They are receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch. And they're not the same for everyone, and they're not in equal in magnitude. You know, somebody could be like 2 of them are really strong and the rest don't matter at all. And receiving gifts is sometimes really important to some people. I can tell just the way you talk about this that you consider it higher than I do. And the reason I even brought that up in the first place is, like, between Alicia and I, neither of us consider giving and receiving gifts as our love language. Like, if she thought it was really important and I didn't, I could still communicate love to her by making it important because she thought it was important. But we don't really value it very highly, either of us, and so it's not that hard to deal with.
That's interesting. I don't know if I can break myself down like that without taking the test, but from my perspective, I feel like she does a really good job. Like, I feel a lot of emotional investment when I receive these gifts, and maybe I'm trying to apply.
It sounds like receiving gifts is one of your love languages. So when you get a good gift that you've been given, you feel loved. Like, love was communicated through me through the selecting and giving of this gift. And you want to return that love, but it doesn't necessarily have to be through giving gifts. You just have to discern what the other person's love language is and reciprocate communication of love in their love language.
Let's see. I can say a lot of things that'd be really funny that Nicole probably wouldn't appreciate. Like, you know, when I give her a hug and she goes, "Ew, get off me," or if I like, "Oh, sweetheart, you look so beautiful today." Ugh, shut up. Like, I'm trying to figure out what her love language is.
Yeah, maybe it's just quality time or acts of service.
It's probably those two. Maybe I just need to sit on the couch with her and do all the chores.
So she doesn't need words of affirmation or physical touch, but she wants quality time or acts of service.
She just wants me to sit next to her and watch The Mandalorian with her Baby Yoda plush.
Yeah. And maybe she's recognized correctly that one of yours is receiving gifts, and she happens to be talented at that, and when she gives you a good gift, you feel love.
Oh, well, dang. I wish I hadn't spent all that money on Christmas gifts today then.
So
no, but all right, so all this aside, the love language, let's get out of our fields because that's too girly. Let's talk about the logistic aspect of gift giving for your spouse.
Go back to our robot place where we have to execute the gift-giving algorithm.
Yes, the gift-giving algorithm. Like, you have to find a gift, you have to purchase the gift, you have to have the gift shipped to you, and you have to then maintain the surprise throughout this entire process until Christmas Day. The problem is, like, we share an Amazon account because why would we pay 2 Amazon Prime subscriptions?
So now you're acting like a person who cheats on their spouse. You get like a faux email account, a separate credit card, a PO box.
Yeah, right? Like, I was looking at it. I was at work today on my lunch break looking at the gifts that I wanted to get for my wife. And, like, how can I execute this? Okay, I can pay the shipping. I can ship them to a different address. Who would I ship them to? I have to set it up so they don't call Nicole and be like, "Hey, what are all these boxes from Josh here for?"
Yeah.
But then my boss was nice enough. She'd be like, "Oh, we'll just ship them." Like, she had a great idea. She's like, "Oh, just buy a gift card on the site, digitally. Send me the digital gift card. I will purchase all of your items on my Prime account, have it shipped to my location for free, and then we'll just hold them here in the office until the big day.
So you already brought this up. Aren't you concerned about compromising your secret plan?
Not at all, because my wife, the first thing she asked me when I got home was, "Hey, what's this money gift card that you sent to your boss?" Because
busted.
It's a shared Prime account.
And you don't want to know you're giving her gifts. So you could be like the guy in the chair in Spider-Man. Nothing. We were buying a motel room. I was cheating on you.
Well, this is the problem, right? It's like she goes, "What's this? What's all this gift card to Amazon for your boss?" And I was like, "Oh, well, don't you just don't worry about that." And then of course, then her spidey sense just goes into overdrive. Like,
right.
What are you doing?
What's going on?
No, I am not having an affair with my 40-something boss. She's a wonderful lady and a nice person. She is also married and just not my type.
You're going to have to go even deeper if you really want to fully, utterly, and completely surprise her without doing anything. But if you went okay, this is the thing we do in the military when it comes to operational security. We think that we can keep the enemy from knowing anything, and by trying to obscure everything, we give them information. Like, they can just monitor our network traffic, and even though it's quadruple encrypted and they can't open it for infinity years, they can see just spikes in the amount of activity and glean information from that. And if you went complete radio silence and it looked like you had no external signs of getting her or making her or buying her a gift, she would still know by the silence that something was up.
Yeah, exactly. There's no way to truly do that. You have to work it somehow into your normal day-to-day schedule. Like, the only way that I can think of to be super secretive and completely off the radar when it comes to gift giving would be to actually go to a store and physically purchase a thing. And who's got time for that?
Wow, that sounded so old-fashioned.
That's you still do that, don't you? Do you still get do you do the couple days before Christmas, pile the whole family into the minivan and go down to the shopping mall?
No, we have once this year, and we only did it with the angel tree. Like, we took the kids, we went down to the angel tree where they had, like a gift described for a child. We picked one off the tree. We all went to the store together, and we got the gift for them, brought it home, and wrapped it.
Ben Rich, the rich family, making the world a better place.
So, Dursley not Weasley. What is his name? Dursley, Harry Potter's uncle's name. Anyway, from the Harry Potter universe, you only got me 36 presents last year. I got 37. Like that. I mean, when you have 6 kids, Alicia was worried that problem was going to start to come up. And so when the kids were little, she was always very conscious of kind of the quantity and relative value and significance of the things she was getting each of the kids. And she would keep this notebook and take copious notes, and she would get them out and compare them. And I am always the voice of the kids don't care. Maybe other kids do, but ours don't. They don't care.
I was expecting you to bust out and I'm always the voice of logic. So here's my spreadsheets for how we did the Christmas presents from 2004 to present. No, but this is a transition that kids go through, though, and you probably know this better. This is the first year I'm starting to experience this. When your kids are really little, it's all about quantity. They don't care what they get. They want to have a literal mountain of presents that they get to unwrap and open. They want to feel that excitement of opening something new for as long as possible. It doesn't matter what it is.
So,
but go ahead.
Okay, have they started transition out of that yet?
So this is the first year I think my son just transitioned out of that, because this is the first year he asked for something big.
Huh? What did he ask for?
I just want lots of presents. And this year he wants a bike. He wants a bike for Christmas. Something tells me
he's a man with a
one.
plan.
Exactly. And this is a thing. This is really weird for me, Ben, because he's been consistent for multiple
it's not
weeks
just
now.
Every time you sit him on Santa's lap, he just comes up with something that's in line of sight. He has this in his mind. He wants a bike.
Yes.
And this is his way to get it.
He told his grandparents at Thanksgiving. He told us. He told Santa Claus. He wrote it in his letter to Santa Claus. He wants a blue and black bicycle.
That's satisfying. That's I can fulfill this wish. As opposed to the year before when you may have sat him on Santa's lap, they said something and you get it and they forgot they asked for it and don't care.
Yeah, it's just it is satisfying, and it's nice to be able to have him, because now that he can see that far in the future, he can anticipate it and he can be excited about it. And he's like, "Oh, I hope I get the bike that I've been wanting." Yeah. And then when he opens it, like all of that anticipation is going to culminate in that one big satisfying moment when he gets the thing that he's wanted for so long.
So when you
Whereas
say open,
my daughter just wants to open a bunch of presents.
How are you gonna package a bike? Are you gonna try to put the whole thing inside of paper?
So my son does not listen to the podcast, so I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. But the bike is currently in our garage, and I have cleverly hidden it by stacking it on a wall with other boxes, and he has walked past it 50 times.
Okay.
And just because kids are oblivious.
Yeah.
So it's currently still in the box. I have a strong feeling that I'm going to spend Christmas Eve putting a bike together.
That's not too hard.
And then maybe... No. And then maybe we'll wrap it. Maybe we'll just put a sheet over it. Maybe we'll... I don't know. I'm sure Nicole will have a very fancy, fun way to do the big reveal of the bike.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm just the guy that puts it together.
She's good looking.
I remember staying up late on Christmas Eve is a tradition for parents, because we stayed up until almost midnight last Christmas Eve putting together my daughter's dollhouse that is almost as tall as I am.
That sounds like fun.
It was a nightmare.
Oh. I like putting together toys.
Yeah, I like putting together toys too, but these instructions have been translated 3 times. Like, they started in the original language, and then they were poorly translated by some undergrad student at this university.
You bought her an IKEA dollhouse.
I bought her... It was probably one of those Chinese knockoffs, like Barbie dollhouses. But this is the thing. For the same... Like, this is why Amazon is so great. Like, yeah, it's not name brand Barbie dollhouse, but we got it for a third of the price, and it's twice the size. Like, and again... For her, it's quantity over quality.
Yeah.
So we didn't just get her a dollhouse. We got her everything that goes in the dollhouse, and she was stoked and so happy about it.
But she hasn't been consistent about asking for something this year like your son has?
Oh, no. She's all over the board. But like little kids are. They don't know what they want. They just want the presents.
Yeah.
So it's foreboding, though, because now it's like, oh, no, he's realizing that if he asks for something, that he could possibly get it. And so it's only a matter of time before the dollar value of these things just starts ratcheting up, and they don't come back down. It's like, oh, last year for Christmas, I got a PlayStation 5. So that's my price threshold. Like, I'm going to get at least something worth that.
Yeah, that's power creep.
So with 6 kids, how do you manage the transition from quantity to quality and maintain the power creep over long periods of time?
So part of it is just they change. They change the things they want. They change the things they need. There really is a time when they just aren't interested in toys anymore. And then they transition to a phone. But if you got them a phone last year, they don't need a phone this year. It's just...
Ugh. Then they get gift cards.
Yeah, they don't want money. Like, my kids have jobs and they don't buy anything. It's okay. I don't know how, but I achieved the dream of, like, giving your children a better life than the one you had, but not in the way that, like, backfires on you because they become spoiled brats. Like, somehow I got, like, the best of both worlds. Like, I grew up, and there were times where my parents sat us down and said, listen, we're not getting you any presents this year because we got to eat. Like, that happened to me multiple times. There was one year where we were the local charity case, where, like, on Christmas morning, there was a knock at the door, and we went out, and, like, the local community had adopted our family and given us gifts as, like, the poor family that couldn't afford to get gifts. And my kids have never wanted for anything. They've never wanted for food or for clothes or for, the video games they want to play or the books they want to read or anything. But for some reason, they've also never really developed much materialism. They don't care about name brands. They don't want a lot of things. They don't want the latest thing. They are just happy with what they have. And so when Christmas comes around, they may have 1 or 2 things they want, but really they don't need anything and they don't care. So they're not going to be disappointed if they don't get something, or they're not going to be, like, super excited if I do get them something. So it's not really a high pressure for me.
It's awesome. Hashtag life goals.
So Alicia has tried to dial back from this, get out the notebook and make sure everybody has the same kind of thing and the same number of thing. And she adopted this rule of 4. She got it from somewhere else. And in the post about it, the lady told this story of her little kid where one year it was the perfect storm of gifts and they had like infinity gifts. And the kid was sitting there and she said, my husband and I were watching him and there was this point where he was opening like the 10th gift that his eyes just glazed over and he was no longer experiencing the joy of Christmas. And he was just opening it for the other people. And she's like, I didn't ever want that to happen again. So the rule of 4 is something you want, something you need, something to wear, something to read. that
and it rhymes.
Yeah, that probably appeals to her because she likes to read. But whatever, I kind of like the idea. And that's kind of how we tend to go.
Is that the correct priority order?
Yeah, I would think so. I'm just as happy.
Read, wear, read. That's interesting. Like the transition, I think the transition keeps happening as you get older and older. Because you remember getting clothes as a little kid from like grandparents
and
or
being
from aunts
disappointed.
And uncles, I'd be like, oh great, clothes.
Yeah.
And then you get into your 20s and you open a pair of jeans, like, oh, thank you so much. I can't afford clothes. This is so awesome.
Yeah. Or I open up like new socks and I'm like, oh, this is great.
So I'm in a job now where I wear shirt and tie to work every day.
Uh-huh.
And I am very happy about my ability to express my individual personality through my crazy socks. So nice. I have a giant drawer full of random crazy dress socks now.
Awesome. I may request that you send me a photo of your sock drawer so that I can put it on the show notes.
It's fun. All right, so this is a complete tangent, but we have a ping pong table in our living room. And that's where we fold all the laundry because it's the largest flat surface in the house and it's waist high and it's convenient. And Ben, this might come as a shock to you, but sometimes after you fold the laundry, it doesn't get put away like right that second. Sometimes it might sit and just chill out for a while.
Alicia's laughing harder than I am right now.
Well, so my socks, like they're dress socks and they're very colorful, and my cats have started to mistaken my socks for cat toys.
Uh-huh.
And so, like I end the evening with a big pile of my dress socks in one particular spot on the table, and I start my next day with the Easter egg hunt, trying to find every single pair of socks that my cats have picked up and scattered throughout the house.
That is awesome. Way good, dude. Cats and playing with stuff, that's like instant internet points. We need a video of this.
A video of my cats just taking off with my dress socks?
Yeah.
I'll see if I can capture one in the next couple days.
All right.
They always do it sneaky. Like it's like elves in the house. They're just gone the next day. With that, I completely derailed our conversation.
It's okay. I feel like we're getting to the end of our discussion on the Christmas gifts, and I got to tell you, I have a story to tell you, and it's a barn burner. It's a real shaggy dog tale, but every time I've told it, people are just enthralled about it, and they talk to me about it later. And I don't know if I've ever told you this story. It might start to come back.
So you're setting really high expectations, and all I can think about is your email purgatory story from last week. And like, are you sure?
This is definitely not just I sent a few emails and no one got them. This is not that.
Man, you set these bars so high. Like you can. All right, it's fine.
Okay,
I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. Okay. So, when I was at about the 6-year mark in my career, I took an assignment to Italy. This was a very unique assignment in that it was not in an American base; it was in an Italian base. We have a mission overseas where we have these small American units at 4 different bases in Europe for maintaining custody of strategic weapons. So you exist on. There's one in Germany, one in Belgium, one in the Netherlands, and one in Italy. And the one in it, they're all exactly the same, and they consist of 5 different flights. And each of those 5 flights is led by a company grade officer. So you got a lieutenant colonel leading the squadron. There's a major who's the DO, and then you got 5 captains, and they're all different career fields. You got a personnelist, you got a command post guy, you got a weapons maintenance guy, you got a comm guy, and you got a security forces guy. And you're all kind of like chummy pals because you don't really compete against each other. It's weird. It's like 5 squadrons, but you're just 5 flights, all under one squadron commander. And I had just arrived in Italy with my family and the dreams and our first tour in Europe and a gleam in my eye. I'd been there about a month. The person I was replacing had just left. And then one night I got a call from my commander. He called all of his senior NCOs and his officers to come down to the conference room, and we all showed up, and we're like, what is going on? And he said, we had a death in the unit last night, early this morning. Yeah. And he said, so here's what's going to happen. This was a single member of the security forces, staff sergeant type. no immediate next of kin, no spouse or children or anything like that. And we're going to follow down the mortuary affairs checklist, and I need to appoint a family liaison officer, which can be a senior NCO, and we need to appoint a summary courts officer, which has to be one of you, my captains. So he looked at the 5 of us and said, I need one of you to volunteer to do this job, to be the summary courts officer, which is basically like complete power of attorney for disposing of all of his affairs. And he kind of closed the conversation. And all of my responsibilities flashed through my mind. I'd just taken over control of this flight. My senior NCO that was supposed to be my alternate wasn't really firmly established yet. My replacement, the person I replaced, had just left. And I kind of looked around, and I had a wife and 6 kids and a new job, and the other officers were similarly encumbered, except for the personnelist, who was a single girl. Who'd been there for a while and didn't, in my opinion, wasn't quite as encumbered as I was. So I hesitated for a minute, kind of let to see if she was going to do it, but she was, I'm being a bit judgmental here, but she was also a bit selfish, and she didn't volunteer for it for whatever reason. And I did as I do, where the commander's like, I need somebody to volunteer for this. And I finally went to him and like, boss, I'll do it. I'll be the summary courts officer. And he says, okay.
How long was that gap? Like, I don't mean to interrupt your story, but for Ben Rich, I feel like I waited a long time for her to volunteer. And in my mind, like that gap was like 4 seconds.
It was maybe 5 minutes.
Oof. Okay, that's a long enough time. Yeah. Somebody should have stepped up.
Yeah. So nobody did, and I went to him, told him I'd do it, and he says, okay, you'll be appointed the summary courts officer. This is going to become your primary job until it's complete. Let your NCOs take care of your flight, and make this your full-time job until it's done. And he'd never done it before. He didn't know how much it was going to be. I'd never done it before. I didn't know how much it was going to be. But by the time it was said and done, a month later, and I closed everything out, I'd spent 500 hours doing this duty.
500 hours?
500 hours.
Is there 500 hours in a month?
Yes. Okay. And little did I know the winding tale I would go down as the summary courts officer for the affair of William Bocapella. So, he died in a single car accident in his fancy tracked out racing Mustang. Not unlike yours that you used to have, but with the V8 engine and a track package and a lot of accessories. One morning...
Let's make this clear. Like, I had the cheapest stripped-down version of a Mustang that you could own. Yeah. So, like, it looked like my car. That's about it.
Okay. But it was a black Mustang with, well, you also had the shiny wheels.
I did have the shiny wheels because I was very narcissistic back then.
So, well, that might lead into this story.
Ooh.
So we found out that what had happened is one night he was a cop on night shift, and he was coming off night shift. He had the following day, he didn't have shift the following day, and there was either a car show or a race at the track. I don't remember which. I think it was a car show, and he was driving somewhere. I didn't know at the time where. I later found out where. And he came to a place in the road where there was a bridge that went over a highway, and the road kind of rose up and veered off to the right. And for whatever reason, we didn't know at the time, without braking, he didn't veer when the road veered. And on the opposite side of the road, where the guardrail began, he hit the guardrail at 50 miles an hour, the end of it. And it pierced the car and went all the way through the car and came out the trunk.
Oh, wow. Sliced his car in half.
Yeah. And probably killed him instantly or within moments. He just passed a car before on the road, and so the person that he'd passed came on the scene, with the smoking wreckage, called the police. I think the ambulance was there within 5 or 10 minutes, and he was pronounced dead on the scene, and the Italian authorities took over.
Okay.
So our family had just arrived in Italy, and I don't know if you've ever traveled to Europe, but if you go to Northern Europe, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, it's kind of a joke, like a Eurotrip kind of joke, that Northern Europeans speak English better than we do as Americans, but Southern Europeans do not. The language barrier in Italy is ever present and profound. Italians don't speak English, and so the challenges I was going to face were kind of daunting. with this. I'd had one experience thus far where my predecessor sold me their car and I took it to the mechanic and I'd written out a script of all the things I thought I would need to say to the mechanic and what their possible responses would be with translations into English. And I said the first thing from my paper and he instantly veered off script and I was utterly and completely lost.
Okay, so you have a very hard job to do in a country that hates you already and you don't speak the language.
Yes. So
sounds terrible.
So the very next day, he sends me to Aviano Air Base, where there's a whole, 2,000 Americans, and there's a personnel flight with a mortuary affairs officer who's trained in what to do here, but won't be the one doing it. So I went up there for my training. It's 160 miles one way. I drove up there, sat down with them. They had me sign the paperwork. They appointed me the summary courts officer, and I became legally power of attorney for the estate of William Capella. And when I say it's like I was his wife. Like I had that much power. I could do anything his wife could have done. And then they handed me the 33-page Air Force instruction that gave me all of the rules about what I had to do over the next 500 hours. And most of it was associated with just kind of properly collecting and disposing of his personal property.
Okay.
So the immediate part was the car, his remains, his personal effects that were on his person at the time of the accident. And he'd already, he was in the hospital and mortuary affairs had already taken over coordinating with the Italian authorities through interpreters and that kind of thing to transport his remains to Ramstein Air Base, where they were transferred to Dover and then sent to New Jersey where his family was to prepare for his funeral. But I immediately got a call from the police station that they had his personal effects and I needed to come pick him up. So it was already starting. So I drove the 160 miles back from Aviano Air Base armed with this 33-page publication in my hand. I went to the police station and picked up like his wallet and his watch and the things that were on his person when he died. And then the cops told me to come to his locker where he would change every day into like his security forces uniform with his body armor and his rifle. And they emptied it out on the bench in front of me. And it was starting to become real that like I was now the owner of this guy's, all of his stuff, anything that belonged to him. The photo that was stuck him in his locker and his driver's license and his iPod and his cell phone, and just anything that belonged to this guy. And my first task was to maintain like complete positive control of all that, in that I had to know where it was and I had to make a line item inventory of everything he owned.
Okay. So I'm just going to break you here just for a second as part of the story, because the only way that I can cage something of this magnitude is in like the terms of like bad movies, right? So in my mind, this is how I'm trying to draw up and like sum up the story that you're telling me. And I need to know if I'm writing like one of those very dramatic, heavy, emotional movies that gets dark and like goes to bad places and you feel bad when you walk out of the theater, or if this is going to be like a buddy cop, like kind of ironic comedy that like somebody died and that's important, but then all of these funny things happened and like it all turned out okay in the end and we all learned something and hooray.
Sort of in between, probably similar in tone to Living with Yourself. We're dealing with weighty issues, but there's also kind of levity and a bit of tongue-in-cheekness to it all.
Okay. All right. So, didn't mean to interrupt. That gives me a good place to like try to cage all this stuff. You're making the line item inventory of all of his stuff. Now, how detailed? Like, are you talking about like the contents of his wallet? Like
yes.
Down to like, oh, he had this scrap of paper.
Well, okay, not that detailed. So it would be like wallet, and then it would just be includes all of everything you expect to be in a wallet, kind of thing. But man, it's there's so much. So they give me his wallet and his keys and everything like that. And there's two timelines going on. There's like the task that I have to complete in its completeness, and then there's things that other people that are doing that kind of interject and interrupt me doing this stuff that's not time sensitive. Like, okay. It didn't matter how long it took for me to like clean out his apartment, as long as I got it done within a month. But the coroner was calling in saying, "What do we do with the body?" And that had to be dealt with right now.
Okay. So,
and there were so many things that like when I immediately just thought, okay, what all am I going to have to do here? There was twice as many things that I didn't even think of that popped up. Like, for instance, does he have a lien on his car? Did he have auto insurance? who's going to pay for the damage to the guardrail, those kinds of things. So. Wow. Yeah, so the car was impounded, his remains were transported, and all this has taken like the first 2 days. And after about a day and a half, I'm like, okay, I got to go see the scene of the accident because I want to understand what happened. That wasn't required, but I just wanted to know. So I drove out there and I looked at it.
You're Ben Rich, and you're going to get the extra credit on the assignment. You're going to do everything you're supposed to do.
Wouldn't you want to know what happened? I never even met this guy.
I would have wanted to know to a point, but I wouldn't have wanted to know to the Ben Rich point where did you submit the 33-page instructions that you were given, like with addendums? Like, did you give 86 pages back to the mortuary affairs officer with your suggestions and edits?
So I didn't try to edit the publication that told me what to do, but what I submitted back to them was thicker than the publication that told me how to do it.
Man, did I call that or what?
Yeah, you totally did. So I went to the scene of the accident, and it was just like I described. The road kind of curved gently over and up onto an overpass, like you would imagine, and you can tell he just went straight across, like as if he never turned, and just skewered the car on the guardrail. And
okay.
You could see where they cut the guardrail and where the damage was to the stanchions that hold it up and stuff, and you could kind of see what had happened, and the story was starting to unwind. As I was starting to talk to people, his supervisors and his friends, you could tell that they knew more than they were telling me. For some reason, they were worried that I was like a threat or something, that something else had gone on.
Ooh, intrigue.
Yeah, so. Everyone seemed to know more than they were telling me. I was the one with all the responsibility and none of the information. I was the new guy.
You were just supposed to do your 33 pages and get out of our life. This guy's digging too deep.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the shortest orders of business is that the family was going to hold, the interment, and they needed to take. We decided they were going to send his best friend back to attend the ceremony, that he would accompany the remains back and give the military honors, and that he would transport his personal effects that were on him at the time of the accident to his mother. And I reached out to her through the support system and the rule and the structure that had been set in place. And she communicated to me that she wanted to bury with Bo his emblems off of Bella, his Mustang that he died in.
Okay.
So, of course, I wanted to honor her request. Go ahead.
No, which is impounded. So there's a whole other layer of bureaucracy.
You anticipated this. So I now have for the first and not the last time, some Italian bureaucracy in my way. So I go to the lot where the car is impounded, and it's not like a police lot. It's like a gas station that was near where the accident was in the town, where just like the local tow truck went and picked it up, cut the guardrail off, and dragged it back. So it's almost like I just bribed the attendant and went into this impound lot.
Oh, good.
He's like,
I was specifically already thinking that. Like, you probably could have skipped a lot of bureaucracy by being like, hey, listen, how much is it going to cost me to go crowbar some stuff off this car?
That's what happened. That's what happened. I was just like, this has got to happen this afternoon or not at all. And his mom asked for these emblems. They're not going to need them. And I rightly discerned that the Italians just didn't give a crap. Like, no Italians died. They wrote the guardrail off. They didn't even want any money for it. They didn't investigate it. They didn't do an autopsy, nothing. They just sent the body off to Germany and washed their hands of the thing.
Nice. There's something to be said about corrupt systems.
So I kind of talked to the gas station attendant and let me go into the yard, and I got in there and just popped off, like the little Mustang emblem off the trunk and the GT emblem off the front fender, and kind of got a first-hand look at the wreckage. And it was brutal, man. The guardrail was still in the trunk that had entered through the engine bay.
What are they making these guardrails out of?
Oh, man. He just hit it right on. Even if you're running full speed and you hit you hit like a piece of straw, if you just hit it straight on, it might go through your skin.
Yeah, that's true.
So it was, you could see his blood in the in the driver compartment, and just the brutal wreckage of what was left of his car. And I took the emblems and stored them and left. And I still had to work out all the stuff with the car, but that could wait till later. I got what I needed. So I gave that to his buddy. We got him plane tickets and sent him back to New Jersey to accompany William to his place of interment and bring back the stuff that his mother had requested. That all pretty much went without incident. So I'm back to the squadron, and I'm trying to work out what to do next. I call the insurance company to pay off the lien on the car and take care of the costs and those kinds of things. And all of a sudden, the postmaster comes up to me, who works for me, by the way. We'd already met and knew each other, and she's like, "Sir, you need to see this." I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You better come to the post office." So I go to the post office, and she's like, "You see," and there was a stack of what were obviously racing tires.
Oh, gosh.
And that was the big thing, which caught your attention immediately, but there was also 12 boxes next to the racing tires. And I'm like, "What's all this?" And she's like, "This is all for you." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "All these auto parts are addressed to William Capella." I'm like, "Oh, can you send it back?" And she's like, "I don't think we better do that. You better take it." So I pulled my car up and I loaded it full of these racing tires, and there was literally a dozen boxes, and some of them were really heavy, and they were all addressed to Bo Capella. So
high-end auto parts, man. Imported from the States. Oh.
Yeah.
You're in Italy, dude. Drive an Italian car. Good Lord. Like, you had to import parts from America. That doesn't even make sense.
The plot thickens. I got the keys to his apartment, and I went back, and it was a typical bachelor pad. Like, he, had dirty laundry laying all over the place, and there was unwashed dishes in the sink, and these things were all now my problem.
He had a couch, he had a TV tray, and he had a TV.
I just inherited a bachelor pad, and he had a lot of stuff. I'll get into that in a minute.
How many hours did you spend hiding from your family in the bachelor pad while you owned it?
Of those 500 hours, probably 400 were spent in that place.
Not just chilling playing his Xbox, but like working, I'm sure.
We'll get into that. So I went into his office, and he had a computer set up there, and next to the computer was a whiteboard, and all over this whiteboard were Italian names with words next to them and numbers next to them. And after the mystery started to thicken with all these auto parts that came into the post office, I started to realize that he was operating through his U.S. post office box in violation of the status of forces agreement with the nation of Italy and the United States, an illegal auto parts importation business in Italy.
This guy was like a small-time crime lord.
He had brought his Mustang and started bringing it to the track and had made friends with all the Italians, and they realized he was their connection. Because if they wanted to get parts for their imported American Mustangs, that they had to pay like big bucks. But if they just gave him
importing American cars?
Yes, there was an Italian Mustang Owners Club, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. Well, they found out that this cop could basically completely in violation of the agreement he made when he opened his post office box. This cop could import auto parts for them and sell them to him at a slight markup that was nowhere near what they would pay if they bought them themselves, with all the accompanying tariffs and import fees and those kinds of things.
Oh my goodness. I bet he didn't report any of that in his income taxes.
So not only were there a dozen things waiting for me the first day, but each day for the next 6 days, more and more and more packages of auto parts showed up.
Oh, get out of here. How much, at the end of the day, at the end of the month, how many auto parts did you just have?
There were probably 2 dozen boxes.
Oh my goodness.
So this whiteboard in his office that had all these, Guido and Mario and Fabrizio, written on his board, all were transactions that he had already collected the money for.
Which are now your problem.
Which is now my problem. So once I started to put this together and realize that I was now in possession of a whole bunch of auto parts that were owed to foreign nationals, I knew I couldn't just send this stuff back. Because then,
wait a minute. Are they owed to foreign nationals? This is a crime. They're skipping import tariffs. This thing, you could call the Italian police and just completely wash your hands of this problem.
So here's the thing. I've already twice now, and I'll tell you the other one in a minute, experienced complete and utter apathy from the Italians about dealing with this. They're not at all interested in making any... Imagine, any crusty old cop show you've seen where somebody comes in with a crime and the cop's just like, yeah, get out of here, lady, I don't care. That's the kind of attention I was getting from the Italians.
Benjamin Rich, tell me that you stepped in and took over as a small-time Italian crime.
Josh,
please tell me the story.
I became a black market auto parts dealer in Italy.
This is the best thing I've ever heard about you.
This is not a couple of emails that didn't get sent.
You did not undersell this. This is great.
You don't even know. So
you are a legitimate black market parts dealer.
It gets better. It gets better.
Oh my god. Oh my god, this is the best. All right. I can't contain it. Keep going.
So once I realized, so at first I was like, I just got to send them back. Like I can't try to figure out who all these Italians are and give them their auto parts. I just got to send them back. But then I was going to have a different problem where I'd have all their money, and still I had to give it to him. Like I couldn't just not pay back all these Italians that had paid him for their parts. And I was starting.
You absolutely could have done that. You absolutely could have done that. What are they going to do?
Well, at one point, when I realized what was going on, I called up to Mortuary Affairs at Aviano and I tried to explain it to them, and they were like, "What did you say? Like, say that again?" And I started to learn something. So I started to learn one of the deep, dark secrets of the Air Force, and that's that they lie to you about what happens after you die. Your whole career, they threaten you with things that they call line of duty determinations and stuff like that. Like we will punish you so much, we'll punish you after you die. That is a big fat lie. They don't give a crap after you die. They're going to give your money, all of your servicemen's group life insurance, to your parents. They're going to pay off everything, and they're going to sweep everything that you did or ever happened under the carpet, call you a hero, and close the book.
Well, come on. Think about it. Administratively, bureaucratically, that is by far, hands down, the easiest way to take care of this problem.
And the lowest risk. If they really wanted to,
absolutely.
try to, I don't know, make a stink about this guy running, violating the terms of his U.S. Post Office box while he was alive after he's dead, that's just a losing proposition any way you look at it.
Yeah.
But it
doesn't matter how right you are. It's going to look terrible on a headline.
Yes. And meanwhile, I'm the one left holding the bag. So I call up Mortuary Affairs, and they're like, just how can you make this go away? That was pretty much what they kept asking me. And I kind of...
Was that the page 34?
Yeah, that was page 34 of the instruction. No,
make it all go away.
There are make it all go away. I'm going to read part of it to you in a minute, but there are parts in there where it says make it all go away. So I realized I've got to deliver these auto parts. So I get in his computer, and I realized I'm going to have some other problems with his computer that I'll get to in a minute. And I'm starting to find out, but I realize I don't have enough information to deliver these parts. And they're all addressed to Bo, but they don't say who they're to. And I can kind of see on the whiteboard. So I take a photo of the whiteboard, and I find out that Bo is friends with this local Italian auto mechanic that's like everybody's friend. And his name is Andrea. And Andrea is, oh man, is he ever a gem. So he speaks relatively good English, and he has developed himself the racket of being the one that all the Americans take their cars to get fixed because they don't have to speak Italian to get their car fixed.
That's a good racket to be in.
Yes. So I drive down to the town where Andrea is. We already have met because I'll tell you that story some other time. But I'm like, Andrea, I got a problem. Did you hear what happened to Bo? And he's like, yes, I'm so sad about it. I can't believe it. He's dead. And I'm so sad. We were such good friends and stuff. I'm like, okay, Andrea, I need your help. And he's like, what? And I show him the photo I've taken of the whiteboard. And he's like, oh, no. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Andrea, cut the crap. What am I supposed to do with these racing
That's
tires?
Exactly it. That's exactly what it is.
I've got high-end manifolds that I've got to unload here. All right?
That's it. So he's like...
Wipe that innocent crap off your face and let's skip this part. Where do these go?
So he's like, all right, I'm clearing my calendar. We're going to deliver auto parts. And he starts to help...
Oh, my God. No, you went on an epic road trip with some random Italian in a van delivering black market auto parts?
I totally did. So I basically have this whiteboard.
This is the best made-for-TV movie I've ever heard of.
So as we start delivering these auto parts, I'll meet someone, and they'll say, well, who are you? And I would explain to them through my translator, Andrea, that Bo had died, but I still wanted to deliver the parts, and they would kind of go through the...
Yeah, I get that, but you had the opportunity here to be like, don't worry about Bo. As far as you're concerned, I'm Bo. Like, seriously, you could have totally been Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad in this whole scenario. It's like, what happened to Bo? Don't worry about Bo.
Bo's gone. You're talking to me now. And I could have just taken over the syndicate and become the dealer. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And
you're in charge. That's perfect. You're in charge of the post office. Like, who's going to pin that on you?
Anyone that knew, he wasn't just the guy that could get you stuff. People loved Bo Capella. Anyone I met loved him. He was a nice guy. He was just salt of the earth kind of people. And even though I never
except
met him,
except for the black market, parts dealing.
well, as I was starting to meet these people, I realized that their relationship with him was much deeper than that. They really had a fondness for him. And so when I would tell them the news, and some of them had heard through the grapevine already, and I think it had gotten out on like the Italian Mustang Owners Club Facebook or something like that. And so everybody kind of knew, but they would express grief and sadness, but then they would want to get to the business transaction in a very Italian way. They put their fingers together and tell me how much money it was and stuff like that. And when they realized...
I feel so sad for Bo. Now, where's my manifold?
Yes, exactly. So when they realized I wasn't just there to tell them that they were screwed because the guy died, that I actually had their parts with them, they were kind of relieved.
Oh, I'll bet. They've already paid out.
Right. So I would give them their parts, and then they were a little bit sad that their sweet hookup was gone.
Did you give them a really menacing brief? Like, listen, this is your free ticket. After this, I don't want to see your face.
This never
I don't
happened.
want to hear your name. This never happened.
Yeah. No, they were all very friendly people, and I don't think if they knew they were doing something wrong, it's very Italian to just do that kind of thing anyway. Like their tax rates are so high and stuff, they frequently pay cash under the table to avoid taxes and stuff like that. So it's not like that much out of the ordinary to do this kind of thing to them.
Hey, corruption.
Yes, exactly. So after a while, I realized that I've gotten through all the auto parts, and I'm reading through the AFI, and I'm starting to have a bunch of stuff that I can't deal with. He had cases of motor oil, lots of cleaning supplies, lots of consumables that I couldn't ship back to the States. And I mentioned this to one of the members, the charter member of the Italian the Italian Mustang Owners Club, and they invite me to their next meeting.
Oh. Was it in a warehouse? Like, did you have to change cars to get there?
In one nearby town, there was this like American themed diner. It was like the Route 66 diner or something like that. But the cuisine was Italian as can be. All they served was like Italian food, or at least it was that night. So they invite me down. I invite Andrea, and it's just on like a weeknight. It's like going to a going away or something. And we go there, and they hold like a memorial for Bo. They show me photos of him. They all share stories about him. Everybody's remembering. And then I open up the back of the truck with all the like motor oil and cleaning supplies, and everybody comes and takes some, and it's all gone. And they make me an honorary member of the Italian Owners Club and invite me on their memorial drive the following Saturday.
Hey guys, I got all this evidence of wrongdoing, and I was told by my superiors to make it disappear, so it's just a bake sale.
Yeah. So
Tell me, did you take any cash? Like, did you get any Italian cash?
I had delicious Italian food. They closed down the restaurant. It was just the Mustang Owners Club. It was lined up out front. It looked like something out of a scene from Greece. It was just all these hot rodded out sports cars of rich Italians lined up, in American sports cars lined up outside this diner. It was really something.
That would be a really surreal experience.
Yeah. So he had used the cash that he'd made off his biggest ever sale to buy himself a brand new set of Brembo brakes for his Mustang.
Okay.
And apparently someone knew he had these, and one night his apartment got broken into, and when I came to do my stuff there, they were gone.
Interesting. So just the brakes were gone.
Yeah. So somebody knew about his brakes, knew that he'd gotten them for himself, knew that he wasn't going to need them, and relieved him of these brakes.
That is 100% Andre.
No.
That is like that.
It was not. Sure? I know it wasn't. And Andrea was so pissed. When I told him about it, his ears turned all kind of red, and he knew who it was, but he refused to tell me. And he looked like he was getting ready to go vigilante justice. Anyway,
because he wanted those brakes.
He told me to stay out of it, and he was not that kind of guy. Our relationship definitely transcended this one experience together. I'll tell you about him later.
Yeah. Hey, listen, kid. Like, this is a little too deep for you. I'll take care of this. Don't you worry your little head about it.
But again, I found another thing that wasn't in the AFI that I was the instruction that I was working from. Like, what do you do if while you're in possession of their property something gets stolen?
Oh crap. Yeah. So what do you do if something in their possession gets stolen?
So I call up Mortuary Affairs, and they're like, well, you gotta do an investigation, and if you aren't able to recover the property, then the documentation for the investigation will serve in lieu of the property. I'm like, okay. So I grabbed the unit interpreter and we went down to the Carabinieri station, the Italian police, and had a talk with them. And I was just getting, even though I didn't understand the words they were saying, the body language was utter and complete apathy. I could see, as she gave them additional details about who this person was, I could just see their face going, really? 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 Dead American, right. No Italians involved, $2,000. We're never going to see that again. No way on earth we're investigating this lady.
Yeah, like, and that's again, just level with them. Like, listen, how much is it going to cost me to get a piece of paper that says you investigated and didn't find anything?
That's it. So I got my piece of paper and I left. And I'm like, okay, I got to get this done. So my task was to basically PCS all of his belongings from Italy as if he were doing his last permanent change of station. His mother, who was what the instruction called the PERE, the person eligible to receive effects, was the person that would legally receive them, but she couldn't come over and do all of this, so I had to do it if I were him. So I went in his apartment, and I had to basically do all his laundry. So one day, I just gathered up all the dirty laundry around the place, piled everything in my car, took it to the laundromat on the base, and did laundry like all day. And then I took it all back and folded it and sorted it. I mean, this guy had 100 T-shirts. 100 freaking T-shirts, Josh.
Well, yeah, you're a bachelor. T-shirts are $5. I don't want to do laundry.
Right. Well, and they were kind of a story of his life. You know, they were concerts he went to, and
you're the only person that would think that. They were a bunch of T-shirts. They covered his bare chest. Move on.
Yeah, but this was a person I never met, and it was like I was getting to know him through inventorying all of his belongings.
Only you would find washing the guy's T-shirts more interesting than the fact that you were a black market auto parts dealer for a while.
So there's a page in the instruction that talks about the inventory that tells me what I have to do. So this is from Air Force Instruction 34-511. 3.2.4. The summary courts officer removes any questionable items and determines the disposition of this property based on the following criteria. And it gives 3 subcategories. The first is property with no intrinsic or sentimental value. The second is obnoxious or embarrassing property. And the third is inflammatory property.
So this is straight up sweep this crap under the rug.
Yes, it absolutely is. But there's different dispositions based on which of these 3 categories it falls in, and the only person with the authority to make the determination is me.
All right, so this stuff that's embarrassing or has no value, you shred that. Stuff that's inflammatory, you burn that and bury it.
Yes, exactly. And thank you for shortening my story. That's pretty much the long and short of it. Basically, the stuff, as long as I got some kind of external confirmation that it was not intrinsic or sentimental or obnoxious or embarrassing, I could dispose of that, like you said. Like, for instance, all of his perishable food. I just threw all that away. All his non-perishable food, instead of shipping it back to the States, I just contacted his mother and asked her if I could donate it to a food bank in his honor. She said sure. I went down to the local Italian food bank and donated all of his non-perishables.
I wanted that sentence to end. It's like, all right, can I donate all the non-perishable food in his honor? Absolutely. And then I took it all back to my kitchen. And then just moved
on. Yeah, I'm sure this AFI very clearly states that I should not profit from this in any way. And yeah. Okay.
Did the AFI have anything to say about black market part sales? Because I'm pretty sure you could have profited a lot from that.
So, inflammatory property. So let me read this part, which includes but is not limited to items which could cause further grief to the next of kin, such as compromising pictures, videos, personal letters, clothing items, soiled, or other items which directly involve the decedent.
Oh, listen, we don't want to rock the boat. The guy's already dead. We don't want to make anybody mad. Just make it go away.
Yes, so here's how they say make it go away. Category 3. The possession of and decision to destroy inflammatory items will not involve the person eligible to receive effects. And it's italicized in bold. Will not.
Specifically, you do not tell the next of kin that this stuff exists.
Right.
This is codified. Just shut up about it.
Well, here's how they get around it. These items will be annotated on a separate DD Form 1076 and turned over to Mortuary Affairs. This is a change.
Never to be seen again.
Yeah, but this is a change. They didn't at the time. I retained possession of it. So the questionable property will be maintained for a minimum of 45 days following receipt of the property. Once 45 days have passed and the person eligible to receive effects has made no inquiry, all questionable property should then be destroyed.
Okay, so then what did you do with the milk crate full of porn that this guy had lying around his apartment?
So, and you imagined the right quantity, and it was exactly like you just said. But, there was some women's underwear and some questionable photos and stuff. But when I said...
Oh, dear.
And it says specifically in this AFI that and they've modernized it, that there isn't just physical property, there's also digital property. And it says to give special scrutiny to computers and phones, because that's where this kind of stuff can be contained. So I have to turn his computer and his phone back over to his mother, but I have to have done this.
So you have to go through it and like she's going to get a fresh install of Windows. That's what it sounds like to me.
Well, just it can't have anything that's in this category 3 on it.
Oh, so you have to go through every file on his computer looking. You have to search. You were required to search this guy's computer for all the porn you could find. You went to exactly
the right place. I was first a black market auto parts dealer, and now I'm a porn czar. So I now have a legal, moral, and professional obligation to search for pornography.
Listen, honey. This is my duty as an Air Force officer to sit in this bachelor apartment all day and look at this guy's meticulously organized collection of digital porn. I am required to do this.
The first sign I had that this guy did not intend to die that day is when I got to his apartment. He had a browser open with 7 tabs of like every kind of porn you can imagine open. Oh my god.
I'm sorry. So I can't even. This is
my first inclination is just to like close them all and delete the browser history, but I'm like, there's a process I'm supposed to be following here.
I have a duty. I have to make sure. I have to hit the back button 3 times. I've got to make sure that this is legitimately
no.
like inflammatory.
Okay, so I'm not done, man. There's more to this. There's more.
There can't possibly be more than Ben Rich having to offload the black market parts and then surf all of this guy's porn.
There's more.
Oh god, hang on. I gotta wipe the tears away. Oh my god, this is the funniest thing I've heard in a very long time.
That's why I was saving up to tell you this story, because this happened in 2012.
Oh god, this is the best story. Okay, I'm gonna try to contain it. Go ahead.
Okay, so I start searching, and there's the browser history is fine. I can erase that, but he also has some folders with some saved stuff that's obviously homegrown.
Oh, what? Okay, no, elaborate, please.
Okay, I had seen photos of this guy and stuff, and I opened a few of these folders, and I'm not watching every minute of these porn videos. I'm like, yep, porn, that goes in the porn folder. Yep, porn, that goes in the porn folder. I start watching one of these, and I realize it's him in the video.
Oh, wow. So he So the question now becomes, was he amateur or semi-pro?
I don't know enough to make that distinction.
Was he making income? That's my question.
No, he wasn't making income.
Okay.
As far as I could tell. These just seemed like they were kept for personal reasons. So he had a removable hard drive. I took all the files and I put them on the removable hard drive, and I set it aside with the intent to follow this, category 3 of this stuff. I think.
Oh, okay. So you had to keep this portable hard drive just overflowing with porn, and you had to keep it in your house for 45 days.
Yeah. So this says that I have to keep it for 45 days unless the person asks for it, which I thought, no way in heck this is ever going to happen.
Oh, no. No, they didn't.
Okay, well, listen. So, I don't know, about 2 weeks in, his mother calls me, and she's like, I don't know how to say this, but one of Bo's ex-girlfriends found out that he died, and she asked me, well, how do I say this? There were some home movies that they made, and she wants to know what happened to him.
Well, Mrs. Bo, you're going to have to give me some identifying characteristics of this girl, because there's a lot, and I'm going to need to pick out the ones specifically that are her and separate them from the piles and piles that aren't her.
I was able to calm her down basically by assuring her that I had fully bounded the problem and that it was contained, and I asked her if it would be sufficient if I just destroyed the movies. And she said she would talk to the girl and let me know, and she did, and told me the girl said that would be fine. So,
oh my goodness, this is the problems that you just don't think about.
I know, and it's all in this AFI. I mean, it tells me I have to do this stuff. So I kind of get all that out of the way. I've done, I've cleaned up the computer and the phone, and I've deleted all that stuff. And we're planning a memorial ceremony for him in the squadron. And it's starting to become apparent that he was as well connected with the Italian ladies as he was with the Mustang Owners Club. And on the night that he died, after he got off shift, he'd gone over to his side honey's house.
Okay.
So the last person to see him alive was his side honey that his main girlfriend that everyone that's seen him and knew him with didn't know about.
Wait, so I thought he had a main girlfriend at home that the mother was talking to.
No. This was an ex-girlfriend.
All right, so he had the ex-girlfriend with porn videos that she wanted back.
Right.
And then he had the main girlfriend
in
Italy.
Yes.
And then the Italian mistress?
Yes.
Wow. This guy was popular.
Yeah. So he was coming from the mistress's house when he died, and so she was the last person to see him. So as we start planning this memorial ceremony, it becomes apparent that this is going to turn into a confrontation between the side honey and the main honey.
Oh, just epic drama.
Yes, they're both going to show up at this thing. The girl, his main girlfriend could be like, if he hadn't been with you, he wouldn't have died. And like, this is just going to turn into like an episode of Jerry Springer when it's supposed to be like this reverent memorial of remembering a dead service member.
Okay, I'm imagining a sitcom where you have two identical memorials and invite the two different women to the different ones. Yeah,
I wish we'd been able to think of that through, but it was all happening kind of fast because we'd found basically a loophole because his family hadn't done the traditional thing that when your service member is serving in Europe, you plan a vacation and you go visit them and spend some time in Europe. So we basically got some funding and got plane tickets for his mother and his sisters, and I think two of his sisters had little young children, and to come over to Italy. And so we were planning a memorial ceremony to coincide with their visit, and we didn't want it to turn into an episode of the Jerry Springer Show.
Yeah, so you were on a time crunch.
Yes, exactly. It had to be this time, it had to be this date, and there was this storm brewing.
The parents are going to be here, and his Italian girlfriends are going to blow up at each other.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, they might have appreciated it. It's like, well, I'm just so happy that Bo was so popular.
Yeah.
These girls are very pretty.
So you didn't make the kind of assumptions I did about his mother, but ultimately she turned out to just be a real kind of folksy, down-to-earth person that wasn't bothered about things like that he had porn videos he'd made with his girlfriends. Like, it just...
Oh, that's good.
The secret inventory thing was probably completely unnecessary. I could have just sent her everything and it would have been fine. Ultimately, I found this out through the experiences with her.
So this is a combination of you wanting to follow the letter of the law a little too closely, probably coupled with you being ultra sensitive to this kind of material in the first place.
You got it.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
Because
somebody with a lesser sense of duty would have just boxed it up and shipped it, not thought twice about it.
Maybe. I mean, the risk is pretty high and the instructions are pretty explicit. I mean, how many times can you think of when an AFI has something italicized and in bold?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, it says the person eligible to receive the effects will not be involved in any decision related to inflammatory items. So...
I can see it going both ways, man. I can see people like, ooh, this is italicized and bold, I need to do this. And I can also see like, I glossed over the 33 pages and got through it.
Yeah. So, and I thought a lot about what I needed to do about all this stuff. So his family shows up, and they were very humble people, and they didn't seem real broken up about it. And a lot of people in the squadron who were really upset about the loss of Bo were kind of offended, that just because they didn't understand this family's way of grieving. They weren't crying. They just, I escorted them into his apartment, and they, came in, looked around. They wanted to take a few things with them, the most valuable stuff, basically. And then we agreed that I would finish the inventory, ship everything to them, close out his effects, send him all of his, money and everything. They would sign the paperwork off, and we would close out his case. And then we went to the memorial ceremony. That was kind of like on the day of the memorial ceremony, we took a quick trip over to his apartment. And while his mom was there, I'd noticed that he had a collection of the doll Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. You familiar with the guy?
Yeah, little blue guy.
Yeah, 6 hands, kind of a cranky little guy, but in a cheeky kind of way.
He was bioengineered to be a weapon, Ben.
Right.
But yeah, go ahead.
So, and when he would travel, he would take photos of himself with this doll, like anywhere he went. So, and I was kind of learning about this guy through his life. So while his mom was at his apartment, I'm like, hey, can you tell me what the deal was with Bo and Stitch? And she kind of chuckled towards herself, and she said, Bo didn't believe in God. He decided Stitch was God, and when he died, he would have a hot tub full of naked women, and Stitch would be there. And I was kind of, my eyes must have got so big, I was kind of like, oh, sorry I asked. But that kind of set the tone for what my interactions with her were like. That's
that right there. You should have opened with that story. Like that says everything we need to know about the mother right there.
Right. So, we go and we have the memorial ceremony, and it's the traditional military one. It was really touching. I mean, they did, if anyone isn't familiar, because he was a cop, they did a roll call. Basically where you're doing shift change, you line up all your cops and you call everyone's name, and they all report here. So they lined up his group with all of his friends that he was on shift with, and they call everyone's names, and they call his name and no one answers, and you wait, and and they call it again and you wait, and they call it again and you wait. And then they did the thing with his boots and his rifle upside down and his helmet on top, and then played the trumpet and saluted the flag and gave it to his mother and all that. It was very respectful and very good. Lots of his cop friends crying, and I think only one of the 2 honeys showed up. We were able to avoid the disaster with the Italian girlfriends.
That's good.
So his family disappears back to the States, and I still have this task. I've mostly gotten through the auto parts bit, but there's one other bit that's really daunting. I haven't mentioned this yet, but when you walk into his apartment, the very first thing you notice is his impressive collection of Jack Daniel's whiskey.
Just a lot of different boozes?
No.
Are they different kinds of Jack Daniel whiskey? The same bottle over and over and over.
Like
He's had a ton
the
of
different
bottles of Jack
flavors
Daniels.
from it, and collectors' little keychains on them, and different labels that show you got them from different parts of the world, but it's all Jack Daniel's whiskey. He had Jack Daniel's whiskey stickers and bar mats and T-shirts, and he probably had 20 empty bottles of Jack Daniel's whiskey, and that was probably what he had drank before he fell asleep at the wheel and killed himself. But he... I'll get to that later. But there was
how can you get? Okay, never mind. Just go ahead.
So there was
this keeps unfolding. Like, how many folds are into this story?
Well, here's another one, because here's another thing you didn't expect that I'd done. There were 70 bottles of unopened whiskey, and
so you drank them all.
This story doesn't take that dark of a turn. And when I started investigating what I would need to do to be able to send all of his belongings back to the States, I asked his mom about it, and she said, of course we want that collection of whiskey, please send it back. And so I found out that that was well in excess of the amount of alcohol I was legally allowed to send back with his belongings.
How did he get it there in the first place?
He bought them all a bottle at a time. Most of them were from Europe. He'd been there for like 5 years. So he was well established.
Okay, so
maybe when he brought it there, it was below the threshold. But since he got there and started a black market auto parts business that could afford to buy lots of bottles of Jack Daniel's whiskey, his collection had blossomed. So,
well, this feels like a problem that you could have solved with a stern look at your postmaster.
Yes, but again, I'm trying to do things by the book. So I found out what the book because that's what I do. So I found out what the book answer, and the book answer was that I needed to become a licensed alcohol importer in the state of New Jersey.
Oh, no.
I have, Josh.
No.
Ben Rich has a New Jersey state alcohol importation license.
How? What? I'm speechless.
Yeah.
There are no words.
Yeah.
Like that.
I can legally import alcohol in the state of New Jersey.
I could be put on the stand in front of St. Peter, and he could ask me, list all of the certifications that Ben Rich could possibly have, and I could stand there for 1,000 years, and that would never come up.
Yeah.
What?
So I filled out all the forms, I paid the licensing fee, and I got licensed to import alcohol in the state of New Jersey.
I assume, of course, going through all this work to get this license, that you would then maintain it.
Well, I've never been contacted by the state of New Jersey for my renewal fees. I don't know if it's just good forever. I've never bothered to check, but I suppose if the situation ever came up, I can still import alcohol in the state of New Jersey.
Okay, so for all of our New Jersey listeners, be on the lookout for exclusive homebrewed liquors from the Bad at Magic podcast, and we have legal authority to import it to you.
So I was a black market auto parts dealer. I was a porn czar. I broke into an impound lot.
All right, so czar is a strong word. I'm going to say curator.
Okay, curator.
You're a porn curator. You broke into an impound lot. You went on a cop buddy comedy movie road trip to distribute black market auto parts. You became a liquor importer in New Jersey, like freaking Prohibition era stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff.
I can't imagine. That's got to be it, right? There cannot possibly be any more to the story.
I wish that were true.
No. What? Did he have was he running a dogfighting ring or something?
Okay.
What possibly else could happen?
Okay, so now it kind of gets personal. Because, something of this magnitude of just, digging into someone's life and doing all these things, it was really taking a toll on me. There was a point where I was just sitting in his apartment and I was just surrounded by mountains of stuff and an empty, clipboard that I was supposed to be writing everything down on. And, every time I would try to write down a t-shirt on the clipboard, I would find another one. And I couldn't just increment, because I had to write it in ink on the form, and I couldn't just increment it, so I needed to, organize his entire life before I started taking my inventory, but then I got bogged down in that. And just one day I was sitting there in the apartment, and a friend of mine came and knocked on the door, one of the other flight commanders, and he just retired last week. He's one of my Air Force heroes. He came and knocked on the door, and he's like, "What's going on, man?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm just so bogged down in this. I'm kind of depressed. I just don't know what to do." He's like, "Let's knock it out." And he came in, and we finished organizing it, and he just walked around and read everything off to me, and I wrote it down, and it knocked out the list and finally got me through, and that was the biggest thing standing in my way. So then I just had to do all the routine stuff. I had to pay off his gas bill, his phone bill. I had to collect any debts that were owed to him, and I basically had a store of cash. He'd gone around Europe collecting foreign currencies, and I had to figure out what all that was and count it up in my inventory per currency. So I had this big box full of I don't know, Swiss francs and Czechoslovakian whatever, and I had to figure it all out and count it all and convert it into dollars and so that I can inventory it. Anyway,
and
when
none of that fell out of the box. Never mind. Go ahead.
When I'm all done, I have 70 pages of inventory of his personal effects and another 2 pages of the other, the category 3 stuff.
2 pages of not to be sent forward with the rest of it.
And after 45 days burn. So, and then I'm all ready, and the police report is in my file, and I've got all the stuff, and the truck comes, and I clean out the apartment, and I have to get it, ready to go. But everybody's being good. The landlord's not going to give me a hard time if the blinds aren't dusted or whatever. And I've shipped off the alcohol and all of his stuff and paid off all it, and I'm starting to close it out. And meanwhile, the squadron commander owes the 4-star fatality brief.
Okay.
This is a routine thing in the Air Force. The commander in charge, when one of his members that he's responsible for dies, has to report to the 4-star that commands that theater of operations what happened. Now, I had kind of experienced all of everyone knew more than me and wasn't telling me, but I'd been around and involved in this long enough that I was starting to get an inkling that Bo Capella really liked to drink. And
that makes sense.
And was probably drinking at the time of the accident. But because the Italians didn't take an autopsy, they didn't have a chance to try to determine this till his body got back to Delaware, and they did what's called an ocular fluid extraction. And It was inconclusive because the amount of alcohol it suggested that he consumed was so high that they didn't think it was possible.
Great. It was inconclusive because it was off the scale.
Yeah.
So you can't just it was inconclusive, so forget it.
Right.
It was inconclusive in the way that, we can't ignore it.
So I don't think my commander has to involve me in this, but he decided to, and he invited me to come to the 4-star brief. And I sat out of frame of the camera when he did it over telecon back to Germany. And he prepared his brief, and he started to brief. And as he went on, I realized that he wasn't telling the 4-star the truth about what happened.
Ooh. Was he not telling the truth, or was he omitting certain facts?
You're good at this.
Because, well, this is the thing. Like, so for those of you who are not military inclined that might be listening, like, getting like alcohol related incidents in the military are a big freaking deal.
It's a big black mark on a commander's record. So he's obviously very conscious that reporting to the 4-star that someone died in his unit because of an alcohol related incident, it's not only going to ruin his career, but it's going to have ripple effects for a long time to come.
Yeah, far-reaching secondary and tertiary impacts on his career, on his command structure. Like, there's a lot of problems, and this is one of those things. Like, I don't know, I could see it. Like, it's this gray area. The test was inconclusive.
Yep.
They didn't do the investigation local. Like, there's ample justification to just leave that out.
Yep, and that's what he did.
But Ben Rich was in the room, and he heard him leave it out. And Ben Rich has the integrity and the moral fortitude.
It killed me, Josh.
Unbeknownst to normal men.
It wasn't just that he left it out. It's the way that he did it. Because he told the 4-star that, like, he... And now I'm going somewhere that I don't know if I want this to be recorded forever. But basically, he just assured him that everything was fine. This was just a complete exception. He fell asleep at the wheel. We're doing a sleep study to find out why we're working our guys so hard that they fall asleep at the wheel, and and everything. And there's nothing to see here. Please move along.
Well, and the other end of this is, like, the 4-star might be in on the gag. Like, this might be one of those, like, commander, like, back channel things where you kind of give, like, the head nod. It's like there might have been like the subtext of the conversation, like the 4-star understood.
Yeah, I get it. It's like when you go to your recruiter and they're like, "Did you ever try marijuana as a kid?" And you're like, "Oh, I might have experimented with it once or twice." They said, "So you mean you've never tried it at all?" Well, I said I might have tried it once or twice. So you're saying you've never done it at all? Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it might have been that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So, but you are, of course, a demigod amongst men. So, Ben Rich, I want to know how you handled this situation. Did you just let it eat away at you and just as one of those things that you let go that you want to change in your life? Or did you draw that flaming sword and burn the place to the ground?
I had a flaming sword fight with this same commander, but this wasn't the time.
Okay.
You don't, yeah. So
this was just, so you let it go, but it became ammunition for later.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the best way to evaluate what happened.
Okay.
Now,
and listen, Ben, I want to make this clear because you're the kind of guy that would let that decision eat away at you. You didn't do anything wrong. That guy did something wrong. It's not your responsibility for his actions.
You're right. And this wasn't the only time this kind of thing was going on. Like when I was cleaning out his apartment, he had all kinds of professional things in his apartment that were like marked classified or sensitive.
Ooh. Oh. Yeah, that's also a big deal in the military.
Yeah,
like a really
there was some in his car.
Like,
when I went to the impound lot, there was things marked like sensitive material, do not, keep controlled in his car. There was in his apartment.
So for reference for our listeners, like there would like theoretically be grounds to charge or investigate this guy as a spy.
Right, those kinds of things.
High treason questions.
But really was just an overburdened cop that had been doing his job for 5 years and accumulated a bit of professional dust in the corners.
Okay.
He was a cop and he wore his body armor. In his body armor, he kept like paper copies of here's how you respond to things. And every year when a new one would be issued, he'd pull it out of his body armor and put the new one in. And instead of taking the old one back and turning it in to be destroyed, it would just end up underneath his floor mat in his car.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, I get it. Maybe, maybe not. Like, he probably wasn't working for, country X.
Right. This was just careless handling that's probably quite common in this kind of area.
It's kind of career field. Yeah,
so
I see that.
As these things started to turn up, I would kind of gather them up, and I would go into my friends in the cop flight, his senior NCOs and his flight commander and stuff, and their eyes would get really big for a second, and then they get that look in their eye, the same one they'd give me when I'd start to ask questions about if he'd been drinking that night.
It's like, okay, Captain, how big of a problem are you going to make this for me?
Yes, exactly. And they would just say to me, they would start nodding their head, and they would say, "Just leave this with me. I'll take care of it."
I'll tell you what, sir. Just why don't you just leave this here, and don't you worry your pretty little head about it.
That was it. That's exactly what it was.
Which honestly, and like you're talking about, if it's not really, if it's the stuff that's mark sensitive, that's like, oh, who really cares? Like honest, yeah, it's a judgment call, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the fatality brief's over. All the classified materials turned in. The goods are shipped off. The apartment's closed. The wreckage of the car is paid off. All the auto parts are delivered. There's no more packages coming in the post office. All of his accounts are settled. Everything's closed, and all I have left is a packet of paper, and it requires 2 signatures on it, mine and his mother's. And I have to send it off to her to have her sign it, and then she has to send it back to me so that I can close out my duties as a summary courts officer with mortuary affairs at Aviano Air Base. And from my experience with her, I did not have a great degree of confidence that she was going to do this in a timely manner, if at all.
You were expecting to ship this into the void and it would just disappear forever.
Yes. So,
it's like, ma'am, I absolutely must have this back.
Right. Exactly. So 1, I made full copies of everything. 2, I tried to make it as foolproof as possible. Like, I put it in a FedEx box that required signature upon receipt, and inside I included it in a prepackaged, addressed envelope all ready to go, with like post-it notes pointing to the signature block and everything. Just open this box, sign here, close this package, put it in the mail, and you're done. And I had to berate her for like 3 weeks before she finally sent it back. So in that 3 weeks' time, I'd had time to kind of just stew on the singularity of it as I tried to get my life back to normal and go back to my regular job. I finally had all the paperwork in hand. Everything was closed out, or so I thought.
Or so I thought. So ominous.
And I made an appointment and went up to Aviano Air Base and sat down in front of the mortuary affairs officer, who was a major. And I think they just recently changed, so he wasn't familiar with my case. And
oh, wow.
I had the 70-page packet inventory in front of me with my signature on it, and he's used to dealing with ones that like was a person who died who had a living spouse, and the summary courts officer does virtually nothing.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense because the spouse is going to take care of his personal effects. The spouse is going to take care of his obligations and liabilities.
Right. So, but I did all of that, everything.
Right, and you have to report that, and you have to like properly send it up the chain. It's got to be documented.
Yep. I did. I lived this guy's life for a month, and at the end of it, I almost needed counseling. Like, I felt the loss of this young man. He was an honorable staff sergeant, security forces officer in the United States Air Force. He was a friend to all that knew him. He, obviously didn't intend to die that day and expected to live a long life and continued to enjoy his life. And then I saw my commander kind of dishonor his memory by just sweeping it under the carpet for the good of his career.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
And I sat down in the office of the summary court, the mortuary affairs officer, and he's like, "So let's just close this out." I'm like, "I don't know what to do, man. Like, I feel like this isn't over." And I kind of told him, what I was thinking, basically related to him, and he kind of at the end his eyes were all big, but I could also see the competing desire to just do what they always do, which is close the file.
Yeah, I just want to be done with this.
Yeah.
Like, what? You're the only person in this entire process that just doesn't want to be done with it.
Right, exactly. You were exactly right. That's exactly what was happening, and I could tell he was holding his breath. He's like, "So what are you gonna do?" Like, if you want to try to continue to pursue this, I can't stop you, but I don't want you to.
Is that what he said?
No, that's what he was saying.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, I got it. Like, he didn't say that, but that's what was being transmitted.
Right.
Yeah.
So I took a deep breath. I oosed for a second, and I signed the packet, and we put it in the file drawer and closed the drawer, and I walked away. And I walked away a member of the Italian Mustang Owners Club, a lifelong friend with Andrea, the mechanic in Montechiari. And every year on Bo's birthday, I get a letter from the insurance company addressed to the estate of William Capella, because I apparently am still that.
What?
Like for instance, if they ever update their privacy policy and they send out a to all, I get a letter addressed to him. I got one just a few weeks ago.
Oh my goodness! And how does it follow you?
They just request address service.
Oh my goodness! All right, that's you guys need to stop sending me this letter.
And that is the story of when I volunteered to be the summary courts officer for the estate of William Bocapella.
Ben, that was a lot. There was a lot there, and like I feel so. I have to say, some of those problems existed because you created them, because you took your duty so seriously.
Because I did what it said in the AFI?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. You didn't read the spirit of the AFI. The spirit of the AFI is make it all go away and everybody thumbs up and high five each other, say we did a great job, and we'll move on with the mission.
Yeah.
Like you're the one that read the line items. Like, well, it says, guys, we have to take his black market auto parts and distribute them to his suppliers.
Well, 45 days later, we had ourselves a little party at the burn barrel and burned all this stuff in the Category 3 inventory.
Oh, except for that darn external hard drive went missing from that list, and I don't know where it is. I can't think of a better way to honor Bo's memory. Link in the show notes.
Oh, man. All right, Josh. Well, this has been our longest episode ever, and I think that's a good place to stop.
I'm going to need 2 weeks to digest this and have follow-up questions. Like, this is just the best. I'm going to listen to this podcast like 2 times. I'm going to make notes. Like, this is, like, normally this is the part of the podcast where
I can't believe I've never told you that.
Next time. What we're going to talk about next time is I'm going to just pick this story to pieces, and I want to know, like, there's going to be gritty details that I'm just going to have to know. So at least one segment of next podcast is follow-up.
Yeah.
This is, Ben, this is, okay, I cannot, like, night and day, sir. Like, your email story that you built up versus this story.
I told you I wasn't overselling it.
This is, these are 2 different people, man. Like, this is the best.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, nothing really compares to that story. All right.
I am so glad you told this story instead of me telling my little kid birthday party story. This was way better.
I still want to talk about little kid birthday parties. So next time we'll talk about Star Wars, The Force Awakens, and birthday party etiquette. Thanks to our listeners. And please, if you haven't yet, like our Facebook page or come join in the discussion on Reddit. Go to our website and read some of Josh's additional articles he's throwing in. Thanks to our listeners who keep coming back. Share with your friends, and thanks to everyone.
Yeah, it's been great. I love talking to you, Ben. And if people listen, wonderful. If not, I want to know more.
All right.